Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, June 15th, 2022, and it is 5:20 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Faircloth Staggers. Board Member Roth.
Here.
Board Member Bailey.
Here.
Board Member Fletcher. Vice Chairman Guzman. Chairman Losner.
Here. All right, are there any deletions or deferrals tonight from the agenda? No. No deletions or deferrals. Okay. We have an addendum, addendum number 1, with respect to car number 3564. Need a motion to add this item to the agenda. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Next item is the approval of the minutes, April 12th, 2022. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Moved by Board Member Bailey, seconded by Board Member Fletcher. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Our next item is tab 2, car number 3554, the impact fee grant guidelines. Madam Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The City of Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency has established the Impact Fee Grant Program for the purpose of awarding funds for the reimbursement of impact fees associated with the development of single-family housing units within the City of Homestead CRA's district that are then turned around and served to individuals that fall within the AMI of 80 to 100%. Developers seeking grant funding under this program must ensure that the properties being developed are single-family units and are sold to households whose income is between 80 to 120% of AMI, which are the affordability requirements. Staff recommends that the CRA Board approve the attached resolution authorizing the Executive Director to adopt the attached Impact Fee Grant Program guidelines.
Thank you. Any initial questions or comments from the board? Vice Chair Guzman.
Thank you, Mayor. To our development services personnel, what is our impact fee rate currently?
I don't have that right before me, but we can certainly provide that to you after the meeting.
Okay, do you know if we're below Miami-Dade County?
For which part of the impact fee?
Well, tell me what impact fees we typically charge, please.
Schools, parks, police, infrastructure.
And the school impact fee is called concurrency?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thank you. Board Member Bailey.
Thank you. If for some reason there wasn't a developer, any developers interested for that year, would those grant funds be rolled over to the following year?
Yes, we could absolutely roll them over.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Guzman.
If a developer builds an average size home, how many homes would that $100,000 cover? Would it be 10, 20, 30?
It's hard to say because it depends on what their impact fee is.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I've spoken with the manager and the director about some of my concerns is that we would be under this scenario reimbursing or rebating the impact fee paid by the builder. And my concern is that I'm not comfortable now that there's a safeguard in place to ensure that that savings is passed along to the ultimate buyer, which is our intent to make the home more affordable. It's kind of like some people buy the argument that more density means economies of scale and the developer will pass on those savings. I don't ever believe that to be true in any manner. And here at this level of discussion, I'm not confident that and I don't know how we do it, but I think we need to further talk about building in some safeguards or some alternative methods of reimbursement, so that we can ensure that these savings that benefit the developer are also passed along to the buyers. I mean, in principle, this is a great idea and a good cause, and can go toward creating that affordability, but I don't want this to evolve to be a means to put impact dollars back into the pocket of the developer. Vice Chair.
I get your point, Mr. Mayor. I think one thing that this program will do is incentivize builders to build in an area that they haven't been building in the past. So on one front, it starts to develop that area where there's going to be more inventory for people to purchase, whether or not they get those savings passed on to the buyers. Regardless, I still think it serves a purpose just to attract developers to build there.
It's interesting because I've heard you many times say one of the hallmarks of a great city is affordable housing. Okay? This does not help foment whatever the word affordable means. It's, to me, this is a means to further, without safeguards being built into this, as presented, this would tend to give builders or developers a free ride on our impact fees, and I cannot support this without those safeguards built in.
I agree. The same way we want to attract more businesses on the commercial front to start developing downtown, and we want to create incentive programs. I see this as in that same category, but I'm still 100%, trying to figure out how we can control the affordability issue that is gone all throughout the country, not just Homestead. So that's just my point on it. It's in the same category.
Appreciate that. And maybe coming at it from a different direction, if we're not going to build in safeguards that a developer doesn't, increase its margins because of this refund of impact fees, rather that we look at it from the buyer side, a qualified buyer, and enhance the assistance that we already have in place by this $100,000, and let the free market go its own way. I mean, certainly we have a way of knowing for a given home that is newly constructed home that is for sale, we know what impact fees were paid. So if a buyer came to us for other housing assistance or this housing assistance, the impact fees could perhaps be, that amount could be provided to the buyer. They decide whether or not they can afford that market rate purchase price rather than giving a gift to a developer. Board Member Roth.
Thank you. Commissioner, can you, AMI is about affordability or medium income for the area. Is it going to be specific to the southwest section or the CRA area, or is it citywide?
It's specific to countywide. We use we use the county guidelines.
So what is the AMI today?
68,000.
68,000.
Just a little over 68,000.
So, and they would have to approve somebody that was 80% of that to 120% of that. So they have a range of, let's say, 55,000 to 78,000, something like that, in income. I'm just using numbers, but it's not going to be exactly that number you just gave me of 60, whatever it was, 68,000.
Right. No, it won't be. And then that number that you just gave is for a one-person household. So the minimum that you said up to 70,000 or a little bit more
Well,
than
based
that.
on,
That's
based
based
on the
upon
80,
one
20,
person household.
based on the 8120
Right.
figure.
Right. But if you have a family of 4 at 120% AMI, they're making over 100,000. So it's close to 120,000 for that household that they could have in order to be able to qualify for any of our programs.
All right. David, is there any way you can give us an estimate on what impact fees are for a single-family house?
I cannot.
No, David.
David.
In terms of value,
Microphone, please.
Your
Your mic on.
in terms of value of construction costs?
Well, how do you base impact fees? Because it'd be really helpful if we understood what we're actually saving a developer in this process.
It's
Because
based-
without that number, we don't know if it's $2,000 or if it's $15,000, and obviously that's a large spread between those two numbers. So we can't make a decision based on giving a developer a relief of the impact fees and how much that will affect the purchase price of the house. So do you have
You have that?
I have an example. There is a developer who has a house under construction in the Southwest neighborhood, and his impact fees that were charged to him by the city were $6,000, and that home was just under 1,500 square feet.
So we're talking about a $6,000
Six-
break on the price of a potentially $300,000 house.
Correct.
So that helps us kind of understand the dollars. You know, the developer's really not getting a huge advantage, but I think, as the vice mayor said, it's more of an incentive for developers to look at the area and to build if they can save $6,000. I mean, $6,000 on a $300,000 house is really not that much money. So I don't know where we're going to go with this, but I just thought that would be an interesting part of this conversation: is how much is the developer going to benefit from that grant or whatever we give to them. So that's all for now. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Board Member. Board Member Bailey?
Thank you. That was very helpful. So, for example, let's say this builder qualified. This developer qualified, he would just not have to pay that $6,000, or could you do something with a safeguard where they received that back after they showed proof of the sale, like you do for the home grants? I think that there's lots of safeguards with all of the grants. So wouldn't it be simple to be able to show the sale of the house and then issue that impact fee?
Yes, they would have to provide, in our guidelines, we state that they have to provide us documentation, whether it be a loan commitment letter, something from the bank showing what the household income is. And then we would also see, proof of that the house sold to that individual. So we are asking for that documentation before we reimburse them for the impact fees.
Okay. Thank you, Board Member Bailey. Any further? On the board? All right, so we need a motion to approve. Moved by Board Member Fairclough Staggers.
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Guzman. Any further discussion?
Now, if I could just read the title very quickly into the record.
Sir, thank you.
This is a motion to approve the resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the Community Redevelopment Agency Impact Fee Grant Program guidelines, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Board Member, did you have? Okay, all right.
So I just want to clarify, if this body wants to entertain some sort of safeguard for the buyer, that was part of the discussion. So I just wanted to get an idea of if this body is interested in doing that. If not, we could just move forward with the vote.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because certainly I'm very interested in that, and it's interesting the conversation has been, well, it's only $6,000. $6,000 is a lot of money to that 80 to 100% AMI family. It may not be a lot in the big picture to a developer, but on the flip side of that, In private practice, I've had a lot of closings with developers that would cut your throat for the difference between a $15 and a $50 light fixture. So $6,000 is a very material item.
We're using, go ahead.
No, I just want to say for the record, $6,000 was what this developer paid. So it could be more, it could be less, but this developer and his house on that particular lot, his homestead impact fees were $6,000.
And generally speaking, though, our impact fees are based upon a square foot basis.
That is correct.
Okay, so your 1,500 square foot example of being $6,000 in impact fees is, it gives us an idea of where that may generally fall. Just an aside, I want to say to the manager, if we were going to have a discussion about impact fee related, your staff should have been here tonight with those numbers in front of them.
I agree, Mayor. You're absolutely correct.
Vice Chair?
So if we take the average, not saying that those numbers are in stone, $6,000 and we got 100,000, that's 16 houses. Just to put that in perspective.
Well, that's quite a few new families in new housing. Board Member Fletcher?
Yes, thank you. And again, I appreciate the thought process that y'all put into this a little bit. We typically don't put safeguards into a lot of the things that we do, unfortunately. And my question is to the attorney: can we do this post approval of this, or do we need to incorporate safeguards now?
You don't need to incorporate the safeguards now. What this does is adopt the regulations. The resolution approving it allows the director to make whatever tweaks are necessary to run the program. So I think she's heard your direction, and if you need to see them, they can be brought back to you, or in the alternative, if the direction is to seek them, then you can approve them as they are and direct the CRA director to come up with a plan and implement that to protect the buyers. See what other strings can be attached within the guidelines for that purpose.
This would come back on a council consent consent agenda.
No, this is a CRA board item. This will not come back before the council. This is it as it stands. You don't have to come back, but if you want to see it again, you can certainly direct us to do that as well.
So I'm comfortable, supporting this as long as that's able to come back to us for approval. Or we give direction to the CRA director, and she'll provide us with the information.
I believe clear direction and concern has been given. Yes, Board Member Bailey?
Thank you. So just for clarification, you mentioned how much that $6,000 difference would make to a family buying a home, but the way that I saw this program working out is that it would be in the best interest for new families to find a new home, to buy their first home, let's say. Would this program not be more beneficial to put in then with your first-time home buyer program as far as it affecting the family specifically? Does that make sense?
I think I understand what you're asking. Putting it in with the first-time home buyer, it limits it to only first-time home buyers. So we do have some purchasers that are not first-time home buyers.
That notwithstanding, we could provide this benefit, if we came at it from the other angle that I discussed earlier, to buyers within the CRA, whether or not they are first-time home buyers, which would be I believe, more of a direct benefit to those falling within those parameters of AMI.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we could. And whether we went the route of providing it directly to the buyer or the way that we're proposing here, I think at the end of the day, we are still accomplishing our goals of getting folk into homes that they're able to afford. So whatever the board's preference is, we can do that. We can try out some different models and bring back to you. If you look at just whichever you like. But I think both gets us to our end goal. But the latter, your recommendation, Mr. Chair, does provide a little bit more safeguards, ensuring that the buyers would get the opportunity to take advantage of this as opposed to the developer.
And I'm certainly more concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Just a second. Just want, before I forget, for the record, Board Member Avila has joined us. Board Member Roth.
Thank you. As one of the safeguards, could it be conditioned that the developer contributed to the buyer's closing costs as well? So maybe up to that impact fee charge. I mean, because a lot of sellers help with closing costs, so that would definitely ensure that the buyer was the beneficiary of the savings to the developer as a safeguard.
But a developer can still inflate the sales price.
It's a free market. I mean, you can do what you want. I mean, at this point, I think the prices are going to be pretty stable, if not coming down some, with this market that we're facing. But none of us have a crystal ball. But if you really want to benefit the purchaser by giving the developer the credit for the impact fees, giving that money directly to the buyer would, satisfy part of that, regardless of the fee of the home. The market's going to dictate the fee of the home. It's or the price of the home. It's not going to be. It's going to be conditioned on appraisal. It's going to be conditioned on market condition, location, all these different things. But I think if that program would work and the developers would be willing to do that, it does somehow guarantee that the buyer would see at least that benefit in a direct or indirect way. So that's just my thought.
Appreciate it. Board Member Avila?
Thank you, Mayor. I love the conversation that we're having here, and we're really trying to do our best in ensuring that the buyer, at the end of the day, that our resident, our taxpayer, is going to get good bang for their buck. But I think that we have to stay focused on the fact that there's no benefit to the buyer if the property doesn't even exist in the first place. We have to incentivize the development within our CRA, and that's exactly what I think the CRA director is trying to propose here. As Board Member Roth mentioned, the property won't get sold for more than appraisal if they are, in fact, financing it for families, low-income families, or families within this median income, subject to FHA guidelines, even conventional guidelines. The price is going to be what the market dictates the price to be. And we already have a parallel program with developing actual properties on those 4 lots where we are controlling the price and we are controlling the financing terms and the max LTVs and things like that. I think that this particular item, it is an incentive for the developer. It is a benefit to the developer. And there's nothing wrong with that when we're trying to incentivize the development there. Thank you.
Thank you. Other than I think an incentive to a developer would be to know that the potential buyers have the backing of the ability with our money to pay those impact fees. There are 2 ways to incentivize, and I Vice Chair Guzman. Oh, I'm sorry. Board Member Fairclough-Staggers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And Councilman Avila stole my thunder. I was a little confused here. I was like, okay, is this agenda item to incentivize the developers? Because let's be honest up here, there are not many developers coming to develop in the Southwest community. And if we're not incentivizing them and giving them a reason to come and develop in this community that no one is developing in, then is it really an incentive? So if they're saving on impact fees, but we're going to ask them to turn around and give, let's say, 50% of it back to the homeowners to help with closing costs, it's really not an incentive. And that's not a bad thing to have an incentive. So for this particular item in this particular community, I am all for utilizing this to incentivize developers to come into a community that I was born and raised in and nobody wants to go in. So I fully support this initiative to incentivizing developers to develop in the Southwest. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member. Vice Chair, did you want to weigh in?
With that said, I'm ready to call the roll.
No, that's interesting. I'm certainly, Okay, we have a motion and a second before us to approve this as presented. Can we get Mr. Kraft a microphone, please?
Mayor, while we wait for Mr. Kraft, I just spoke to Michelle Lopez. She's on the line, but she's having technical issues. She's telling me it's $2.74 per square foot. So depending on the size of the dwelling, that's where the number we would use for the calculation for the fees.
Appreciate that. Vice Chair?
It's across the board, or school board? I guess it's an average.
No, city.
Police, Parks and Recs.
Hi.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Michelle.
The school concurrency is paid directly to the school district. That's not paid through the city. The only impact fees that are paid to the city are PD at 47 cents per square foot, parks at $2.17 per square foot, and the public works impact fee at 10 cents a square foot, totaling $2.74 per square foot. And that's on residential. Impact fees for commercial are a different rate.
Thank you. So I guess to your point, there are other impact fees payable to other entities that are not charged by the city of Homestead. The $2
Correct.
change was as to city of Homestead charged impact fees. I just want to say, I do not believe there are safeguards in place that will provide the benefit to those families who need to have these homes. An unaffordable home that's built because of this is not going to become any more affordable to that family. Mr. Kraft?
I think you're absolutely right about that, Mayor. And I also think that there's no reason to intensify whatever builders to come down here, because eventually, well, they will come down here because it's about a supply and demand. They are building up north, and eventually there will be no more land to build and develop up there. They will be squeezed down south, down to Florida City, and perhaps even to Monroe, right? So they will pass through one way or another, whether we like it or not, Homestead. So there's no reason to give them a cake or whatever achievement in order just to come here and dig a hole and build a building. If they want to do it, they have to pay for it. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. Is there any further public comment?
I just want to get a clarification that how much in dollars are we speaking about in terms of grant funds for this particular item?
$100,000.
$100,000. And with regards to the first come first served basis, do you have a separate criteria for selecting which developers would be granted or not?
No, it's just first come first serve.
And this is going to roll over from year to year until the funds run out, or does it get replenished every year, the $100,000?
We can roll over if we don't spend it all this fiscal year. If we spend it all, we can always add additional fundings in our next budget year.
And can we, as a board, rescind this resolution or this grant at any time?
I'm sorry, repeat
Can
that?
we rescind or cancel this grant program at any time?
Matt?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate it. All right.
Good question. Even better answer. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second before us. All in favor? Aye. Nay. All right. Thank you. Next item is tab 3, car number 3545, a Minority Builders Coalition contract amendment. Ms. Driver?
Mayor, if I can, I was talking to Captain DeJohn when the meeting started. Did you all speak about the addendum of the landscaping bid?
I skipped that. We're going to do that next.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Ms. Driver?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the January 11, 2022 Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency Board meeting, board members authorized the Executive Director to enter into a development agreement with the Broward County Minority Builders Coalition for the construction of 4 new homes on CRA-owned lots located in the Southwest neighborhood on Southwest 6th Street and Southwest 7th Street. The agreement provided for the development of 3 different models for the project: Unfortunately, due to escalating construction costs, MBC cannot meet the initially agreed upon models and pricing, and therefore proposes to adjust the sales price and number of models to be constructed. Mr. Johnson is here tonight from Minority Builders Coalition to speak to this matter if anyone has any questions. In essence, this is a discussion item for you all. The concern is that because of the construction costs that continue to rise and are still rising, not just the costs, but also labor and associated costs with building a home, they are asking that they be allowed to build the smaller of the three models that they had proposed to us, which is the Rose model, and to increase that sales price for up to $325,000. And that's important to note that they're saying up to $325,000. That may not be the final sale price. They're hopeful that it can be lower, but they did want to propose that. The size of the home will be either from 1,125 square feet up to 1,500 square feet. Again, they are still engineering, trying to get they want the larger size. They would love to make it 1,500 square feet, but they're still engineering and trying to make sure that that can happen. Mr. Johnson is here. He can answer any questions that you all have for this. Our guidelines will remain the same. We're still targeting folk that are between 80% to 120% AMI. In this market, most likely the buyers will fall closer to that 120% because honestly, someone at 80% AMI, I don't know if they can afford to buy any home at this time. So most of our buyers will be close to the 120% AMI. And our down payment assistance is still in play. Minority Builders is actually, they're providing down payment assistance as well. They are taking a substantially decrease in profit by offering up this new scenario. And their profit margin now is just under 6%, if I remember correctly, which is kind of unheard of when you look at other developers and what they are making on homes these days. But with that said, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, and the board. And if you have any questions or comments, I'm here. And as I said, Mr. Johnson is here.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Johnson, why don't you come on down to the podium, and just so we've got you on the record, if you'll give us your name and address and your position with Minority Builders on the record, and I'll open it up to questions from our board.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and board members. Brian C. Johnson, President and CEO of the Minority Builders Coalition, address 499 Northwest 7th Avenue, Suite 101 in Plantation, Florida.
Appreciate that. Okay. Board members, the floor is yours for any further board member Fair Cost Staggers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Pleasure to see you. I was excited when you initially came before us with this project. Yes, and although it's been a change with this agenda item, I'm still excited. And I look forward to working with you on this project should it get approved. I just have some preliminary questions for you and our CRA director. Just preliminarily, can you just walk us through very briefly on how we get back to this place?
Okay. So we started with a vision that we will use your city-owned lots to enhance the opportunity for wealth-building homeownership. That we will start with the primary target of the folk who already live in the Southwest area, as we understand about 80% of them are renters right now. And then we would include people outside of that immediate area and the city limits of the city of Homestead as the second layer of targets. And then we would include anybody close to the city of Homestead who would be able to come in and create the triple bottom line effect that we were trying to create for affordable housing. And so at the time that we had this proposal, we had just finished doing exactly what we said. So we were preaching what we were already practicing. But the world changed a bit since then. Material prices, as the director has listed so detailed, are substantially higher. From the estimates of last year to now, we're talking about a 40% difference in some of the major packages. From last year to now, we're talking about a 6 to 8 month lead time on some of the major packages as well as some of the subcontractor labor. From then to now, we're talking about a substantial increase in property values. and yet it didn't change our desire to still achieve that goal. And so we've been working with Ms. Driver for the last 3 months to just make sure then if the initial pathway of providing 3 different models based upon what we had just completed would no longer work in this environment, what would work? And so we've sharpened the pencil, did the math, looked at some of the existing inventory of houses that have been recently built, and we believe that what is proposed here represents a very doable pathway. Now, there's still some work to be done, and ideally, as Ms. Driver said, the ideal is to bring the actual sales price as low as possible, if not at or below $300,000. And the way in which we're going to do that is that we're going to leverage our status as a not-for-profit home builder, who's also a state-certified member of the CCTC, Community Contribution Tax Credit program, that allows us to go out and find some additional private dollars that can come, and that will all go directly to the buyers. So for us, we believe we can accomplish this goal by making sure that we minimize costs as much as we can, control the cost of the construction process, control the delivery challenges that we're seeing by trying to pre-purchase some items up front, and the most important thing is find as much purchase assistance as we can find. And you can see that we've tripled the amount that we initially said from $5,000 to $15,000, and we believe there's more out there that we can bring to the buyers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that synopsis. And as you mentioned, sharpening the pencils, something came to mind, Ms. Driver. We have a program where we provide financial assistance to first-time home buyers. I believe it's $10,000. And we had some conversations about increasing that to potentially $20,000. We didn't get there. So as we contemplate potentially increasing the sales price, I'm trying to figure out how we can assist our homeowners to bring down that actual finance price. So how much money do we have in those coffers for first-time home buyers?
We have $100,000 for first-time home buyers.
So that's a conversation that we can have to potentially increase that allocation for first-time home buyers to help bring that cost down. What I am most interested in addition to bringing that cost down for our first-time home buyers, I like the fact that you are a nonprofit coming into a community, as I referenced earlier, that not many developers are chomping the bit at coming in. And I looked at Miami-Dade County. I said, who else is doing this? Who else is conveying properties to external entities or nonprofits? And Miami-Dade County has been doing that for a while. In 2020, they conveyed about 189 properties to external entities and minority nonprofits, minority organizations. And we've had several conversations on this dais about equity, access, and inclusion, particularly for minorities, and ensuring that we are intentional and purposeful about providing those opportunities for minorities in our community. And I'm excited at the prospect of this minority-owned nonprofit, African-American developer, coming into our community, getting a fair share of the pie. You have a 51-year, I believe I was reading in here, track record, so you're just not... You haven't just started doing this. You've been doing this for a while. You have a track record. I won't hold the fact that you're based out of Fort Lauderdale against you, but you are committed to bringing an office into our community, and you're providing what I consider like a boutique-type service to these home buyers. You're reaching out to different agencies to provide support. You're giving back to the community, and there's not many out there that's willing to do this for our community in the Southwest. So those are my preliminary thoughts on this project. I would ask my colleagues on the dais to work with this entity to ensure that they're able to move forward and build these 4 homes. And I'm willing to have these conversations, do whatever it takes for us to get there. I'll rest there, and I'll come back later if necessary.
Thank you, Board Member Fairclough-Staggers. Board Member Avila.
Thank you. So I'm happy to see that you're coming back to the dais with an option versus walking away from the project. I know that these, with construction costs and everything relating to construction and development, things are still in the air. So I'm not surprised, but I am a little confused because we're providing the property, the land to build on. We're making sure that the buyers have access to the down payment assistance program that we offer. And then I recall that the conversation we had was that you were committed to bridging the additional gaps with other down payment assistance subsidies. Is that still the plan?
Well, at first, that's why we went from 5,000 to 15,000. And then secondly, I'm confident we can chase more. It's just that it requires a little bit more work with the community partners and identifying the buyers.
All right. So you're not currently presenting us with a problem with being able to do that or accomplish that?
No, ma'am. I'm pretty confident that we'll be at or above 15,000 because we haven't even factored in any of the assistance that will come from the banking partners because there are banks who provide down payment and purchase assistance, and that's not factored into the 15,000.
Right, as well as Miami-Dade County has the MD program. They have an additional $12,000. So you still have my vote of confidence, and I'd like to see this move forward with the same original terms that we had agreed to with regards to the LTVs, which we're speaking the same language here. Okay, I think that as we had previously discussed, the market's going to confirm the price and the appraised values and whatnot. So. 325, or what was the below price point you were saying?
So what we did was we looked at the appraised value of a similar model at about 365,000, and we took your 90% number. Even though that's 328, we went lower than that to 325. And if you notice that 325 we landed at is the same as a house that's 14 years old, more than 14 years old, for about the same size being sold right now. So we are confident that we're much less than the 90%, and we're still trying to get less by value engineering and by saving more on costs that we're hoping that working with our team as well as Ms. Driver can identify some cost savings.
And your current timeline for completion?
So now that's going to be interesting because we provided you a schedule based upon certain presumptions. Obviously, the first presumption was that we'll have the development agreement signed by 6/3. So now the key is to look at the lead times because we've adjusted the different lead times for each of the milestones based upon what we're seeing now. So it depends on when we actually get the development agreement signed. And we know the first 60 days will be, off the top of my head, design. And that design will give us a chance to try to push walls a little bit further to create more size, to find some new features on the inside, or find some more savings, as well as look at some other ways in which we could further beautify the exterior facade, because we have now a smaller house on long lots, and we want to try to make that a beautiful experience, now a feature for the family. So we'll be going through design with the architect and permitting. At the same time, we'll be actively engaging the community and banking partners to identify additional purchase assistance for the buyers.
Have you had any changes in your commitment to doing the impact windows and how that relates to insurances?
Well, the only thing that we've seen most significantly with windows is that what used to be a 3 to 4 week lead time is now become 5 months.
Correct.
And so we have to factor that into the schedule as well. We have a house that we have 6 houses we're building right now in Lauderhill, and we ordered packages in January. They still haven't given us a delivery date. So other than that, we will continue to have impact windows. These are standard features that we're going to have just for the idea that we want to create wealth-generating quality homes that I would want to live in. That's the sensibility that we bring to the table. So if whatever I would want in my house is what we've added as standard features.
Okay, thank you. I'll rest there.
Thank you, Board Member. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Johnson, for being here. Part of what we're trying to, I think the whole country is trying to figure out this affordable housing and trying to figure out a solution to affordable housing. I know the Florida Realtors is trying to figure it out. The Miami Association of Realtors, they're reaching out to just about everybody they know, trying to come up with some sort of a solution. So when I start thinking about, how development works, and you've been doing this a long time, I start asking some of the smaller developers, and I'll say, hey, have you guys ever thought about different design alternatives, different materials? Because the traditional way of building is what's causing a lot of, the supply chain issues and also the increase in all of the costs when it comes to the materials. So smaller developers will say, if the big guys aren't doing it, then it's not less expensive. And when I say the big guys, I say developers like Lennar and D.R. Horton. So the smaller developer says, we're looking at them, and if they're not doing it, it's nowhere near less expensive to do, which I completely disagree. Because what I think is happening is they have created an ecosystem of indirect, everybody gets to benefit from what they've created. So they're publicly traded companies, and if it's working, then they're not going to, all of a sudden decide to do it a different way because you've got a learning curve to go through. But for educational purposes, as a developer, have you ever thought about maybe not building the traditional way and maybe looking at some alternative building designs like steel homes, modular homes that still can get an FHA-approved loan?
So I'll answer that question but the answer is yes. So I'll answer directly first. But then context to that answer is that you all have a Southwest neighborhood master plan that identifies specific standards and features for what can be built residential as well as commercial. So you have to start there first until you change that plan with coming up with a approach to construction. Secondly, from a cost-conscious perspective, we decided to go with a model that we had already built because that saves us $20,000 on design fees.
Okay.
So a reuse fee is substantially cheaper than building one from scratch. So that's why we thought this proposal would be most cost-effective, time-efficient way to move forward. But certainly we've thought about all kinds of things from container homes to all types of stuff. But the local regulations haven't caught up to those types of technologies yet, and so we're still building to standard practice.
Thank you. So to staff, if a developer proposes a set of plans that meets the Florida Building Code, can staff deny that application?
It depends on the location of the proposed development. As the developer just noted in the Southwest, there is a master plan that has prescriptive design requirements. Outside of the Southwest, in other areas of the city that are not PUD, there's zoning only specifies things as height, lot coverage, setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. So depending on the location would determine what the requirements are.
Thank you. The only difference from the research that I've done with, for example, steel homes, the only difference is you're replacing concrete or blocks with steel. But no one that's looking at that house would ever know that the difference is steel other than concrete. They still qualify for FHA homes. When I have received microfilm plans from steel homes built just outside of Homestead in Miami-Dade County, I noticed that there are significant ways to save because you don't have to fill the entire foundation of concrete, nor do you have to lay those blocks. So I think there are ways, and I just wanted to bring that up just to get your perspective, and if you have been trying to see if there's ways you can reduce costs by not doing the traditional style of building.
And I'll just say last thing. So not only are we a affordable housing practitioner, but we also serve as one of the leading affordable housing advocates. And so our role as an advocate is to push the industry to be as innovative as possible with coming up with new ways to solve an old problem that's getting worse. And so right now, the state of the art is to subsidize. In fact, the definition of affordable housing is a real estate deal with subsidies.
Right.
And so right now, the goal is to increase the subsidies because we know that's what works right now. But hopefully in the future, we'll have more changes of building permits and building codes and what have you that allow for different types of building in the future.
I also think the only way that this would ever work is if we work with a partner like your company, because a private developer could, identify those savings. They could come down here and build that house and save all of that money, yet still turn around and sell it at market value. So then the only one that benefit was the developer. So I think we have to control it with partners like yourself and your company. And I think hopefully we can get there sooner than later. But I really would like to see before us a different design standard than we've got today.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Fletcher.
Thank you, and I appreciate my colleagues' comments. They're very heartfelt, and I take them into account with my decision to support this today. However, I do have a question. When was the last time the Southwest Development Plan was updated?
I believe it was probably in the 2012-ish timeframe.
So similarly, you know, we've been talking about city code updates, Southwest Development Plan.
We have a workshop next week.
We have the workshop next week, but again, I would just offer this to the entire staff that the longer we wait to do some of these things, the more it's going to cost. You know, city code, it was 1 million, now it's 1.2. Next year it's going to be 1.4. We need to start taking cuts at this now, and staff input on that is a key that we need to start moving forward with this, because if we continue to lag, we're going to continue to have these same types of issues, because some of the contract or the construction types that the vice chair has augmented to, you know, they work everywhere else in the country, but they don't work in Homestead. I would like to see some of these small container homes. I think they're very affordable, they're attractive, and we have some areas that they might go very well in. So let's start looking at the plans and the codes, and let's start moving forward. We need to make that decision quickly. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you for still being here. When you first came and we heard about this idea, I thought that this is exactly what we need to make it a successful program. So you still being here, I think, is proof of that. I just wanted to comment. You mentioned two things that stood out to me, you know, to really look at how you can increase subsidies, and if you had to make the houses a little smaller, how the bigger yards could become a feature. I love my backyard. I think that's South Florida. There is a lot to say about having a beautiful backyard where you can get together with neighbors. So I love that you have that in your mind, because I think that if we did have to cut somewhere, not in the amenities, not in the quality of what's inside the home, but if it was a beautiful outdoor living space as well, I would be okay with that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Board Member Bailey. All right, let me start the conversation by saying I did not support this transaction when it came before us several months ago. I still don't, because in the interim, I have had other folks come to me. I believe a couple of them have talked to the city manager, who have expressed the thought that they would be willing or in a position to make a payment to the city for those lots upon the sale of the house. We are giving you valuable lots. I'll said it then, I'll say it now. I think all these other things you promised were a lot of vapor and smoke and mirrors and feel-good stuff. What I see here tonight, I'll be the glass half empty kind of guy, is that you're coming to us, asking us, rather than build a diversity of housing, to build the smallest model with no garage at a purchase price of possibly $60,000 more for that basic model than was contemplated 6 months ago. Now, to a certain extent, I will agree, and I've had some comments that were sort of in accord with the Vice Chair's comments. I think that this issue before us now gives us the opportunity to wipe the slate clean and talk to other folks who are versed in 3D printed home construction. And I understand that modular and prefabbed are terms of art, and I'll not get into that right now. I think that there are other building methods that others could perhaps bring to the table to create affordability and a payment to the city for the underlying dirt. Now, I think we've probably got a difference of opinion as to whether or not it's even humane to tell someone, I'm going to build you a house that's basically a shipping container. It's not a far cry from what I talked about at the county mayor's housing summit a few weeks ago, where it's clear we have people in this city living in metal tool sheds. So I'm not talking about metal boxes. I'm talking about new building technologies. And let's be very clear, and I don't know that staff on the telephone is being fully transparent with us. We're talking about the required appearance of a home under the Southwest Master Plan. They aren't necessarily talking about the method of construction. And that is an important distinction that we've got to keep in focus. And look, they're doing it in the Keys. I've done some research on a lot of these manufactured homes. And again, I'm not talking about something that looks like a house trailer. I'm talking about something that from the street looks like a traditionally on-site built home that they're now doing in the Keys to solve their affordability crisis. We see them going down portions of Chrome Avenue and down the 18-mile stretch on flatbed trailers. And by gosh, I would think that if they meet the building codes in the Keys, they certainly would meet the building codes of Homestead. So let's not be led astray by our dear friends at the Development and Services Department who don't earn inspection fees when a prefabbed house comes and gets dropped down on a foundation. They can inspect the foundation, they can inspect the electrical connections and the plumbing, but guess what? All those fees for prefab housing for inspections through the process no longer exist. We need to stop worrying about that and worrying about providing a product that can be built faster, better, and cheaper. So I view this as an opportunity to, if we need to part company contractually, to do so and find a partner who can bring us that product that meets the current or future standards of appearance in the Southwest neighborhood. And certainly next week we're going to have a long overdue initial discussion on the Southwest Master Plan. But one of my colleagues talked about the county being in the business of giving away lots. Well, I'm one of the few people that still reads the Miami Herald. There was a big story in the last week or 10 days about how that program, those lots have been delivered to a lot of different organizations with not a lot of progress, not a lot of houses being delivered. One of those is right behind my house here in Northwest Homestead, where a tax certificate was sold, the county took it into inventory, gave a lot in Northwest Homestead to a builder who has now built a home that is totally out of character and scope and size of the rest of the neighborhood. 2 years after the start of construction, it's sitting with an overgrown yard and nobody living in that house. But my bigger point is, when you start building a 3-bedroom single-family house of potentially over only 1,125 square feet, that's not much of a house. I've walked in there, and that is a terrible, terrible floor plan. And I don't think we, as a city, need to be supporting that kind of project. So unless we can talk about this current entity coming in with some other building systems and technologies to perhaps provide a larger and more diverse product, because we're talking about no garage, 3 bedrooms, and 1,125 square feet. I thought we wanted to upgrade the Southwest neighborhood. And yeah, I get there's a lot of housing that needs to go away, but I'm not willing to settle just for the sake of getting something done. We need to provide that diversity of size, diversity of architecture at a decent price. But what's before us is asking us to deliver a basic model for $60,000 more than was proposed in January, I cannot support that.
Minority Builders Coalition responded to a public notice that the city had lots available, and upon investigation identified that your value at the time, because of the neighborhood where these first 4 lots are, were sensitive to trying to create home ownership from folk who haven't had the opportunity. 80% of the people in the neighborhood are renters, which means that there's a lot of people who may have wanted to own, but they still live there but have to rent because the market hasn't given them an opportunity to own. Minority Builders, in all of its 51 years, 4 months, and a couple of days, has been focused on wealth generation, community economic development. And affordable housing is just one of the ways in which we do it. And upon speaking with your CRA director, Ms. Driver, it became clear that we found ourselves another partner, a municipal partner, who is considerate of the challenges that the average worker in the neighborhood, the average family in the neighborhood is facing with home ownership, who's willing to put skin in the game to help make a house affordable so that those land acquisition costs won't be passed on, and who's willing to hold to the idea that all of this is for an end user who otherwise would not be able to buy in a regular market. We are here because all of those conditions were true. Now, honestly, if those conditions have changed, then the idea of us as a nonprofit entity, where our main goal is not profit, our goal is to have a housewarming party with 4 families celebrating having new ownership in the city of Homestead in the Southwest neighborhood. That's our goal. That's why we're here. The reason we're doing it for a 5% profit margin is because I can't necessarily do it for free, but I'm not here to make money. And I'm also here to bring resources to the table to match or to meet the city where it decided to invest the value of the lots into the project. Now, again, if that changes and the desire now became city and developer focused and not family focused, I think I'm endowed by my board to say that will make it a wrong fit for us, because we're not here to make money. We're not here. The triple bottom line includes the city. When you take raw land and build a new structure, you will get ad valorem taxes on that in perpetuity. So the city will get its return. The second part of the bottom line is that you now have families who have ownership that they can benefit from the value of property increase. The third is that the revenues from all of that good stuff ends up with a not-for-profit organization who only can turn around and do good for more people. So that triple bottom line is what we're standing on. It's the reason, as I think it was Councilwoman Bailey mentioned, we did not leave. It's why we're still here. But if the city decides it no longer wants to run a family-focused affordable housing program, then there will be a need to reconsider.
Sir, if you are intimating that I am not family-focused, we have nothing else to discuss between you and I. Okay. Because we have a difference of opinion, don't make those baseless allegations. I am trying to find a path toward having a diverse model among those 4 lots that we are giving to an entity.
Yes, sir.
And let me further say, I'm colorblind. Anybody who can accomplish that is going to get my vote. And I'm simply asking, are you able to perhaps bring forward alternative systems of construction so that we can deliver that product to families. If you've been listening to the conversation tonight, I'm not falling on the side of the developer. I believe my colleagues are. I'm not. I have been the one throughout all of the items tonight to be focused on a benefit to the buyer. And it's interesting that in a prior matter, it was okay for the developer to make money, but now in this conversation, it's really not. So, according to one of my colleagues, so I don't get that inconsistency. So ultimately, my question to you is, does your entity have the ability to consider and perhaps bring forward alternative building systems so that we have a diverse product that folks can be proud of when they buy for a reasonable price? No one's asking you to work for free. We all understand that not-for-profit doesn't mean somebody's not making money or taking a paycheck. Let's not go down that road of we're doing it for free. Clearly, in your pro formas, you showed that Minority Builders Coalition was making some money. In this proposal, you're going to make some, but not nearly as much. So please, do not try to box me or this city in about not being family friendly. That is absolutely not the case. I happen to think Minorities Builders Coalition still has a sweetheart deal while you have the right to control and build upon those lots, and dirt is getting more precious every day. So let's not speak in rhetoric. Let's stick to facts. So my simple question is, in accord with what the Vice Chair was talking about, does your entity have the ability to perhaps bring forward a product done with alternative building systems that can perhaps bring a product better, faster, and cheaper than traditional building methods?
Sir, first of all, I apologize if my long-winded description of our mission made it sound like I was questioning your values for family. That is not my intent. The answer to your question is our confidence in this approach has to do with our substantial amount of experience in doing this very same thing. We have not built modular homes. We have not built container homes. We have not built 3D homes. And so just so that I could maintain a posture of under-promising and over-delivering, I would prefer not to try with you, because my commitment is to succeed with what we know and what we do well. So we have proposed an approach to building affordable homes that we believe will work in tandem with your CRA. We're hoping that proposal is accepted, but we are more than willing to go with whatever the will of the body is.
Well, you have a contract that this board approved 6 months ago. So it's about whether or not we're going to keep you in contract and amend that contract to reduce it to a single smallest model. That's the ultimate question before us today. Are we going to remain in contract with you and build one model? That's the ultimate question. Board Member Roth.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Johnson, thank you for enduring this process. It shows that you have a lot of character. My question is, with that, reducing the model down to the smallest one, and you're still trying to engineer parts of that property, I would be much happier if you would at least provide a garage. Doesn't have to be a 2-car garage, but at least a 1-car garage, which would also probably help with the aesthetics of the exterior of the building to bring it some character. That would be my suggestion to that. And with that suggestion, I will make a motion to move this forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Roth. All right, do we have a second to this
question?
Yes, question by Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To our CRA director, how many surplus lots does the CRA have at the moment?
We have about 46 lots.
46.
Roughly, around 46.
And
let's clarify something. 46 buildable lots okay. Let's speak, there we go. Let's speak the same language. Let's be honest. How many buildable lots do we have when you can consider aggregating lots? You got to be careful about how you ask staff questions.
Thank you, Mayor.
Give me 1 second because I want to make sure I give you a very honest answer. Let me pull it up for you and I will give you the exact numbers.
Take your time.
And the reason I focused on that, I recently asked that question and was shocked at the very low number I was given as the remaining single-family buildable lots available.
Right.
Far cry from the 40-something that we just heard.
Okay.
So while
the
we're
purpose
waiting
of that question was, as long as we can, solve the appearance and how the house conforms to the area, I feel we've made a commitment. And I think most of the time, if it's not totally veering off what we were trying to accomplish, I think we should stick to that commitment. So a pilot program, which is what I think this is considered, is 4 lots. And in those 4 lots, if we can get over the appearance and aesthetics, I think we're moving in the right direction, because current market conditions, as they are now, a lot in that area would cost an average of $50,000. So you add that to your bottom line, I don't see a whole lot of developers running to come and do that. Interest rates at the moment continue to be on the rise. So it's imperative, I think, we move on this sooner than later, so that we can at least, if we handle the aesthetic part, we can at least get to the point where there are 4 new families in that area. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Please, thank you.
And I thank you, Mr. Chair, for asking for this clarification, because I really want to make sure that the public is aware and that everyone is clear that the number of CRA-owned lots that we currently have that are suitable to build a single-family home, meaning they meet zoning and lot size requirements, is 5. 4 of them are the ones that we have signed for this development here. The remaining one is on the corner of Southwest 4th Street and 6th Avenue, and we don't think that that's a good place for a single-family home because it's right in the commercial district next to Valentine's store, so it wouldn't be suitable for a single-family home. The number of CRA-owned lots zoned for single-family homes but do not meet the minimum lot size, 4. We're in the process of unifying 2 of those so that we can build 1 more house to accommodate just 1 more home. The number of CRA-owned lots not zoned for single family is 36. They are not zoned for single family. Of those, 20 would not meet the lot size. So that leaves 16. If you change the zoning for them, then we could possibly have 16. The reason why that they are not suitable for zoning and not zoned for single family is because of our Southwest Master Plan and because they are zoned for mixed use. So
Okay. Thank you for
that's
that.
why we only started with 4 lots, because of that was all we had that was ready to go.
So if there were more lots, they would have been proffered to the developer?
If there were more lots, they would have been
they
would have been included in the 163 notice. If there were more lots that were suitable for building at that time, we would have included all. If all 46 would have been ready, we would have put all 46 in the 163.
Okay, so the minimum lot size that we require, is that 7,500 square feet, or is it 5,000?
No, it varies by if they were platted or not in terms of when they were platted. They can be smaller than that, but generally they're hard to build on if they're too small.
So give me a minimum. What would be the minimum lot size so that when we do have a master plan workshop, we'll at least know what's the minimum size a developer can build a single-family home on?
Generally, we work upon like 4,000 square feet.
Thank you. I'll rest there.
Appreciate it. Okay. Good question. But we have a motion by Board Member Roth. Okay, well, let's get a second and then have a final discussion. So Board Member Roth has moved this item for approval as presented. And he's seconded by Board Member Bailey. Board Member Roth.
Thank you. This is probably unrelated to this, but it would be interesting to find out throughout the CRA and the Southwest District how many vacant lots are available to develop outside of the CRA control. Because there is a free market out there. And if there are 50 lots, 60 lots, 70 lots out there, and the free market's not coming in and buying these lots to build on them, that tells you something also. So maybe I can give somebody an ask to, can you go out and figure out how many lots are available so that next week when we have this conversation, we'll know more about that particular topic. Just because the CRA has 5 lots or 15 lots or 20 lots, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. But how many other lots are undeveloped in that area that could be developed? And I would imagine, Mayor, that some of them have been sitting there vacant since Hurricane Andrew, and they were destroyed at that time, and they have not been redeveloped. So it would be a good debate to listen back and forth about, how much is a lot worth, who's willing to invest into the Southwest area. Like this gentleman here is willing to invest into the Southwest area. And not only does he invest into it, he pays it forward. So he takes some of those profits and helps other families. So it's an interesting debate when it comes to the value of the lands in that area. So I'd be curious just to know how many available lots there are out there. Not available for purchase, but that sit vacant. How many potentially could be built on out there? That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. We have a motion and a second on this item.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what this is. This is to take the revised proposal and implement that within the agreement in terms of the models and the price points, and fit that into what you had previously seen, that previous structure with the garage. The garage is going to be a requirement now. Is that something that the developer can?
I'm going to commit to exploring it. Well, so I'll commit to exploring it. Now, you have one lot that, according to your Southwest Master Plan, would not allow for a garage because it doesn't face the right way and you have an alley. But if there's a possibility to value engineer, save costs in some other ways, and bring some more money to the table, then a detached lot is what we're exploring. A detached garage is what we've explored. It's about 200, 300 square feet.
So on that particular lot, you'd have to have a detached garage to conform with the Southwest Master Plan.
No, I don't think you can have a garage at all because
not a garage.
The master plan says that all garages must be faced a certain way and not be facing, the garage itself can't be facing the road. And this particular lot has a driveway or a carport that can face the road,
right?
But not a garage.
In the original agreement, one of the models did not contain a garage. That's baked into the cake already.
Right. So that was the smallest one. So that's what we're getting now.
Correct. That's the one I'm referring to.
So I'm asking them to re-engineer that particular model to include a garage. If we have to exclude one lot, and the rest of the body's okay with that, I guess I would go with that. But I think there's an added value to having that garage on any property. If you look at, most people's garages that live in the city, they're storage areas. They're not used for parking the car. So they have an option at least to do that. So
just for consideration, as we explored a detached garage, we were looking at anywhere from a $12,000 to $15,000 cost difference. So that's why I say, as we are chasing more purchase assistance, whatever we can do to reduce the principal loan, so that if the up to $325 has to be added to accommodate something like that. We will definitely do it, but if we can't afford to do it, then we won't.
Well, what I'm saying, so you have to have, on the other three that would allow a garage, they can't be attached?
Well, you would have to change the model then, because the model doesn't have a garage in the footprint of the house. So you have to redesign the model.
So if you went with the middle one, which is at 1,504 square feet, that one already came with a garage, it would save you $20,000 in engineering fees. Is that right?
So the middle one only works on that corner. You're talking about the Legend? It only works on that corner because it's a horizontal model. The Palmetto was because you have two lots, which are the larger lots, but they are narrow, but they're long. So we had to identify a model that we built before that we thought will conform to the unique dimensions of the lot. And that's why you got those selections in the first place.
So these lots are what, 30, 40 foot wide by 100?
No, some of them are bigger. You have one that's about 40. That's the smallest lot, 40, 45. And I think you all have your easements, your setbacks on the side to accommodate the fact that the footprint of the lot is so small, but the other ones are wider than that. I think they're closer to like 60 or 70.
Well,
at least the one on the corner.
I mean, I'm at a loss. I think maybe somebody else could help.
Yes, Board Member Fairclough-Snyder.
I just have a question. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate forum to put this out there, but I am. Is it possible for us to entertain or moving forward with increasing the down payment assistance from $10,000 to $20,000? Yes, I agree with the garage. I think it's a great amenity to have. And I also understand that that comes at a cost. But we do have the autonomy to increase our down payment assistance. We have $100,000. We have 4 lots. We increase it from $10,000 to $20,000. And I think it achieves everything that we're trying to achieve.
Let me ask Mr. Johnson this. Okay, so without going back to the drawing board, if we went back to the 1,504 square foot model that, as presented, had a garage, the prior estimated price was the 3 1/4. In today's conditions, can you give us a fairly good guess as to what that would be? And what I'm trying to get to is working backwards to determine the amount of assistance that would be necessary to have an effective price of 3 1/4 for that mid-range, the middle model.
I would be, so according to the data that you have in front of you, the new construction 1,500 square foot house that is currently listed at $379. I'm not exactly sure when they went through construction process and what impact escalations had on them and their ability to build and sell at that amount. But I would definitely want to have a moment to look at what the updated figures are for homes that are currently under construction, the ones who have been subject to the escalation letters that we've got that set a April 1st, July 1st, October 1st dates for stuff to go up. And then I want to remind you that that particular model, the Legend, was specifically for the corner lot because it's a horizontal model. The Palmetto goes vertical, which is why it wouldn't fit on the small lot. But that's why we put it on the 2 lots that are on the same street right next to each other that goes vertical, because that particular design, as it was already constituted, will fit the dimensions, the unique dimensions of that lot. So what you're asking for is to re-envision, which we kind of have already done in terms of looking through the pages of other models that we've built. We've had some other 1,500 square foot houses that we have built, sold for the $279 that's now worth $414. Those were not options just because of the construction costs. So that's why we came to you with this particular option, because it's the one that we thought we could build within the still increasing costs and still project what additional increases may happen during construction and still provide a good quality home. Now, obviously, the Landscaping, as we said before, we doubled our budget in landscaping and irrigation. We're going to be looking at additional features for outdoor uses of the house. And to the Councilman Ross' suggestion, we will consider strongly the detached garage on the 3 houses that would allow for it. Again, without substantially modifying the existing design, because that would incur more design costs.
Right, that be a whole new set of architectural fees and permitting and so forth. So again, what I'm hearing then is to endeavor to construct, and I'm talking about all the smallest model, 4 of those models. 3 of those potentially having a detached garage, because 3 of the lot sizes would be amenable to that, but that one of the lots, it would virtually be impossible to do that.
Yeah, you can't.
And we had already agreed under the initial contract that one of those units would not have a garage. Councilman Roth, is that acceptable? Who seconded? Is that acceptable?
I have a
Vice
question.
Chair?
I wanted to ask staff if the reason that the garage cannot be included because of the size of the lot, or can we grant the variance? Can we make a special exception?
It was size and cost. So there was 2 variables. It was the size, the dimensions of the lot, and the cost of the garage. So we were considering detached garages because of the size and the scale dimensions of the model without changing the model. So adding a detached garage that'll accommodate the 3 lots that the master plan allows for a garage to be placed, because not all houses can have a garage in the Southwest neighborhood.
Yeah, but let's put aside the master plan for a second, which is why I'm asking staff if there's an exception we can make for that last parcel, if it meets setback standards.
Well, variances within the Southwest Master Plan are discouraged. We've done them before, so there's a way to get there if there's a relevance to achieve it. So there's nothing really in the code that requires them to have a garage. There's nothing that really is going to be design dictating in terms of things. Most of the sites that we've seen that have had problems, they're trying to build single-story units, because those single-story units take up so much of the land space. If you go up, you get a better option to be able to do things like garages and things of that nature.
Okay, so if staff says that there's a potential that we can, then he has an option to add that if we are within the setback standards. Is that a correct statement? Even though it's discouraged.
Point of clarification, are we talking about the small lot?
Yes. So that all 4 can have a detached garage. That's the question I'm asking.
I'm saying that lot is physically impossible to accommodate a garage in its footprint, because it is only, I believe, 35 to 40 feet wide. That's the first point. And then it has a utility pole that sits about 7 feet from the edge of the lot, just outside of the setback.
Okay.
So it is not possible to build a garage for that particular lot.
That answers my question.
Yes.
Thank you.
We've already approved one without a garage anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Board Member Avila.
Thank you. Where's the laundry room?
I'll make sure I ask my staff for that laundry room. Yes, ma'am.
Was it going to be in the garage that was almost not going to be in the footprint?
No, the laundry room is, I think, one of our standard features, so I'll just make sure that we accommodate laundry room. Laundry facilities, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we all clear as to what the motion is?
Yeah, if I may, Mayor, just for a second, because my colleague at the end had brought up the additional monies to the down payment assistance program. Is this not the appropriate time for that, and we need to do it some other time? Because to help this whole thing along.
Well, that was the question I asked to estimate, and apparently he could not give us a clear answer as to what the mid-size home would be, so that we could kind of do that backwards math to determine that.
Okay.
That was really the purpose of my question was, what would, under today's conditions, what's your estimated cost of the middle home?
Right.
So that we could kind of back into the additional amount we might need to provide for assistance. The market's so volatile, and you don't. And I appreciate you don't have that information in front of you, but hey, had to ask.
Thank you.
And look, that's something that we can come back to. Those houses aren't going to be built overnight. Board Member Fairclough Staggers.
What I think we should do is, because this does not benefit the developer, it benefits the home buyer, I think we should approve up to $20,000 in down payment assistance so that we have that threshold. Because if they need it, we're assembled here now. We don't have a CRA meeting every month. So I think while we're here assembled as this body, we should consider approving up to $20,000 for down payment assistance for this project.
In that regard, now ask Ms. Driver, was our commitment for a certain minimum amount built into the initial contract for down payment assistance?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
The initial contract that we entered into with minority builders, did it create an obligation on the part of the city to provide a given amount of down payment assistance by the city to qualified buyers?
Because that requires a fee restriction. Whereas if somebody were to bring in a gift from a family member, they could pay down their own down payment. They may not need it, so it wasn't a requirement, but it was going to be highly encouraged.
We had the down payment assistance program separate and apart from this. I don't believe in the agreement that we committed to giving the $10,000.
So really, we could not amend the agreement as part of this, but we could, at a next meeting, amend our home buyer assistance program to increase the amount limited to these 4 lots before he even begins to turn dirt.
Yes, I believe so. Matt?
Yes, I think your guidelines now call for, $10,000. So we can bring back the guidelines as you're recommending at a future meeting, amend those guidelines to provide for an increased down payment assistance. You can make it specific to these parcels if you desire and to appropriate the money in that way. The obligation for down payment assistance in the agreement that was originally contemplated has an obligation for the developer to provide a certain minimum threshold, but not an obligation on the CRA itself, with the understanding that we were always going to encourage the buyers to use our program, but it wasn't a commitment. It was just for the process. The commitment was on the part of the developer to provide assistance.
Thank you. And in my line of thinking, because we don't have that obligation now, it's probably not appropriate on the fly to go off and amend that, but that we can amend the program, and if we choose to do so, amend it only as to these lots, at least at this moment, which there's plenty of time between now and construction to do that. Okay. So again, so Mr. Pearl?
I was going to ask for a restatement of the motion just because there's been a lot of intervening conversation. So we have clear direction. Yes?
Which model did we decide on? Are we doing the middle model?
In the agreement, there's one model. That's the Rose, and what I heard was the amendment was the direction to truly come back with an idea or explore the idea of adding a garage.
Adding garages
on 3 of those 4 lots, because 1 cannot be done.
For 3 lots, because
Yes.
the 4th one is just you can't do it.
Just can't be done.
Okay.
It's not physically possible.
So for contractual purposes, though, is this a requirement or is this best efforts to incorporate the garage?
No,
Those
I
are
think
2
it
different
needs
things.
to be a requirement. Needs to be required.
It needs to be a requirement that we fit the garages on. Okay.
I got to put you. I got a little bit of pain, but and I'm just going to throw this caveat out there just for a second because I'm in real estate and Julio's in real estate. We know these things, but a single-family house in Leisure City recently sold, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, less than 1,000 square feet, no garage, built in like the 50s or 60s, flat roof, for $420,000. These are much more affordable than that, and these are brand new. So, and these have potentially, now they're required to have a garage. So that just blows my mind. So anyway, that's the motion.
Okay,
Sorry for that.
So the motion is to enter into an agreement based on the revised proposal, accepting the smaller unit on all 4 lots at the designated maximum purchase price. All the other conditions with respect to the 90% AMI, those will remain in place, and a garage on 3 of the 4 lots. Okay. So, okay, we'll enter into an agreement based on those terms.
All right. Before we take a vote, is there any public comment on this matter?
I'll just make one statement
Sure.
for the record, Mr. Chair. I just want to say for the record that without the additional purchase assistance, it would be a cost concern for the garage, but you have my commitment to move heaven and earth to make it happen. Try to make it happen.
Thank you. All right, so let's see if there's any public comment. Is there anyone in the audience or online wishing to make comment on this item? All right, I'll close the public hearing. I don't see any. Okay. Oh, Mr. Kraft, do you wish to make a comment? Sorry, I couldn't see you back there. And I won't open that can of worms about there was a reason the podium at the old City Hall was off to the right and not in the middle.
I would like to say that I think it's a good idea that somebody want to build something that's affordable, even though it's not affordable. But like Mayor said, we should look into other options. It's not always just about putting concrete blocks on concrete blocks and a little bit of cement here and there and a roof and call it a house. That's what we did in the old days. Today we do 3D printing. 3-4 in Texas, $210,000 with roof and everything. And it could withstand the tornado without anything going damaged, right? So we have hurricanes, they have tornadoes, and maybe, like Mayor said, one day we can bring our code up to standard so we will be more achievable for the modern technology and not scare the modern technology away. But so we could have something new down here, and it doesn't have to be container housing. It can be many other options, but it don't have to be brick and mortar in order to sustain an hurricane or tornado. That was all.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. All right, we have a motion and a second before us. All in favor? Aye. Please register the chair as a nay vote. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate it. Thank you for hanging in there with us tonight. No, we've got another item. All right, I'm going to deviate from the agenda. I want to recognize that we have in the audience tonight our very own District 8 County Commissioner, Danielle Cohen-Higgins. I want to thank her for enduring our mini version of the never-ending discussions. I know she'd like to speak tonight, so welcome and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Should I address the body as mayor and vice mayor, or is it more appropriate chair and vice chair?
Well, since we're in a CRA meeting right now, we're chair, vice chair, and board members.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad that I was able to hear the entirety of this important discussion. It sounds very much like the discussions that we're having at the county. And I want to thank all of you for the time and the commitment that you're putting in to address this issue. It's not unique to the county. All of our municipalities are facing it, but not all of our municipalities are spending the time that it deserves to try to locate solutions. And so I thank you for allowing me to join you this evening, chairman, vice chairman, board members, Director. We had a brief conversation recently when we just at the Board of County Commissioners approved the CRA budget of this year of $6.6 million. And we had a quick conversation about priorities and how I can help facilitate these discussions, the CRA, the City of Homestead. And I want to kind of make clear, as I've made clear before in the past, that I'm here to assist in any way. And if you don't mind me just giving you a few examples, the first item that you all voted on this evening regarding a grant program regarding impact fees, Commissioner Monesteem at our very last Public Housing Committee meeting brought an item to entirely waive impact fees for developers as an incentive, as Board Member Avila spoke about, for the developers to be able to build the affordable housing in our county as an option to create additional inventory. Because the bottom line is, as was articulated and discussed during the committee, that these developers, and this gentleman here that just spoke, touched on it, and I'm certainly no expert, but they don't have to build an affordable housing product. They can build market rate, and in fact, they would make quite a bit more money if, especially in this market, they were to deliver a market rate product. So the question is, if I'm a developer, why am I going to get into affordable versus market rate? What is going to incentivize me to go that direction and deal with all of the governmental red tape to deal with the subsidies that they have to have in order to build this product? So apparently Commissioner Monesteem worked on an item for over a year that entirely waives impact fees for incentives, costing the county with a fiscal impact statement of $6 million a year. And my question was in line with the mayor's question and with the chairman's question. Well, where's that money going to come from? How are we going to balance that? We can't just write off the $6 million. And so there was the discussion of having a 3 or a 5 year sunset period so that we can at least get the inventory going and then revisit it afterwards to see whether or not it's something that the county can actually afford. So, that's just one example to say we are having exactly the same discussion. I did want to give you some examples about what my efforts have been as your commissioner at the county commission. Modular housing, steel homes, something that we are waiting for a report from on the administration. This is something that I too am very passionate about, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Chair. I do think that technologies are evolving as we sit here, and those products have to be looked at as options for our residents. The average modular steel 3D home is about $75,000 to produce. And you're right, these are not container steel homes that look like the things that come into our port of Miami. Driving by, you would never know. I mean, I can give you addresses right now of homes that are modular that are in our info program in Miami-Dade County, where if you were to look at it from a Google map image, you would never know that that was a prefabricated home. And so the costs are substantially lower. We have to look at that, and I actually have an item regarding a pilot program on that. Additionally, at 153rd and 296th Street, we are about to launch a duplex that is a truly affordable housing product. Our Section 8 surtax program at the county delivered this. This is a duplex, 2 units, 2,500 square feet each, 4 bedrooms, and the price point is going to be below $350,000. And we have photos, I don't know if we pass them out, just so that you as a body can see the kind of product that we were able to produce. 2,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms. It's a pretty nice size. And when you see the finishes, I actually had discussions with the developers to pick out these finishes, again, to make sure that the product that we're delivering to our residents is homes that we ourselves would want to live in. In addition, we cut the ribbon in this last year at Fair Oaks and at the Landings. These are rental affordable housing communities where the rents were anywhere between $500 and $1,200. I know your meeting was long and you went into a very robust discussion. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. My purpose here today, and my chief can let me know if I missed anything or if there's anything that I should have gone over that I didn't go over, but I appreciate all of you tackling affordability. It is not easy. If it were easy, we wouldn't be faced with the issues that we're faced with. We would wave a wand and solve it. The mayor is having a housing summit that she's inviting everyone to attend on June 30th at Lone Depot Park. I encourage everyone to attend. I'm certainly your partner in this effort. If there's anything additional that I can do, any resources that I can provide, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity, Mr. Chair,
Okay.
Vice Chair, and board members.
And thank you for coming down, and I want to acknowledge your availability and your staff's availability to each and every one of us, generally at a moment's notice, and it's quite a change from many prior years, and that's certainly beneficial. I often say we're in a new age of cooperation between the commission and not only this municipality, but most of the municipalities, and I think we're much better for it.
We appreciate that. And this, unfortunately, is only one of many issues that we're facing, Mayor. We have a meeting, I think, in a couple of days on a very key issue that we need to address. And so not isolated to affordability, I'm here as a resource for anything that you all may need, whether it's ideas, what we're doing, how we can partner. Please consider us a resource. And thank you again for the time and the opportunity and your service to the residents of South Miami-Dade County.
Thank you for coming down. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you. All right, and we're going to go back to the add-on item, Addendum 1 to the CRA agenda, and this is the item for citywide landscape maintenance services. Madam Director, on the landscaping services?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This item is actually a companion item that you, as sitting as council, will have before you in the council meeting. On March 23rd, 2022, the city advertised ITB number 202213 for citywide landscape maintenance services to over 816 vendors and received 5 responses, with Brightview Landscape Services, Inc. found to be the most responsible bidder. As part of this award, Brightview will be required to furnish all labor, equipment, and materials. This agreement also allows for locations to be added or removed at the discretion of the city manager, and the option to purchase plant and other landscape material or additional labor parts utilizing the miscellaneous line items in accordance with the tabulated unit prices as needed and within established departmental budgets. The city portion of this maintenance service agreement is approximately $558,000. For your consideration tonight is the CRA's portion, which is approximately $188,601. The total for this this maintenance contract is nearly $748,000. Staff is recommending that the CRA board authorize the executive director to award ITB number 202213 to Brightview Landscape Services for citywide landscape maintenance services for Group 1 through 4 and miscellaneous items for an estimated annual expense of $188,601.68 per year. Just to point out, this is a 3-year agreement with option to extend for an additional 1 year. And the price is a fixed pricing for the first year and allows for a price increase, decrease, in 1-year intervals thereafter.
Thank you, Madam Director. Any questions or comments from the board on this item? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve? Moved by Board Member Bailey, seconded by Board Member Faircloth-Staggers. Anything further? Let me just say that I will not be voting for this. I have not been pleased with the level of service that we have received over the past few years from the successful bidder, and I recognize there is a bid process and our hands are somewhat tied, but out of principle, they're going to have to do better.
Mayor, and to your point, I have been talking to the Director of Parks. One of the new positions that we actually got allotted last year at Parks and Recreation, we're going to put in checks and balances. So basically, if Brightview is supposed to take care of Washington Avenue today, the next day the staff member will be going by Washington Avenue to assure that the work was actually done. So, so we're going to be verifying that the work is done, and of course, if it's not being done, the city will take action.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
Mr. Manager, does Brightview mow the lawn on the train track corridor, or is that handled by CXT or that CSX?
That is the responsibility of CSX, but we actually added it to this bid because they're not being consistent in cutting the grass. With that being said, we are trying to hold them accountable as possible. We're reaching out to the supervisory board above CSX to ensure that they're taking care of the property the way they're supposed to.
So it's become the responsibility now with what you've put in place to Brightview.
Yes, because we want to ensure that at least the property looks good for the residents in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Board Member Fletcher.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry to bring this up at this late time, but I do want to address it as I was driving down Campbell Drive today. I see a lot of brand new, nice mulch in a lot of our medians, and most of it's washed out into the streets. Some areas that used to have bushes have mounds of red mulch that are 2 feet high and no bushes, and we definitely need to take a look at the overall impact that has on traffic, to include potential issues for causing accidents. But I'll send you the photos that I took, but very unsightly, and ultimately this is just what they do. When it comes to maintenance of those areas, they come in, throw out the red mulch and leave it.
We will follow up on this, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Board Member Fletcher. Appreciate that. Okay. Board Member Roth and then Board Member Avila.
Thank you, Chairman. It disturbs me just a little bit that we're taking care of somebody else's property. I don't know if we had to do that for a private individual, we would fine them, assess fines, and lien the property. We need to do something to look into cost recovery on the maintenance of their property, and maybe the attorneys can figure out a way, if they don't want to cooperate with us with our little park thing we want to do back over in that area, then maybe we start leaning this property and maybe we own it eventually. So I guess
my question to the attorneys would be is, do they enjoy a statutory exemption for those types of liens?
I will have to take a look. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Mayor,
but I'll work with the manager's office to see what options are available to us.
Mayor, to your point, you're absolutely correct. We could fine them. I mean, we could cite them, but we can't fine them. They're federally regulated. And that's part of the challenge. That's why we've gone to the advisory board above CSX to see if they can apply pressure to them to maintain the property properly.
Yeah, but you would almost consider it abandoned, right? They don't use it. They don't maintain it. They don't take care of it. What if a child's walking across railroad tracks and trips and falls and cuts themselves on something? Who's responsible for that?
I mean, basically it would fall upon them, and that's why we're trying to convert the area into a linear park that's going to be attached to the Biscayne Everglades Trail.
Right.
And so we've had, I want to say, at least 3 meetings with them, with the folks from CSX. And they're being very resistant to us doing that. So we're trying to find alternate methods to ensure that they take care of the property as required.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't seem fair that we have to take care of this problem. So anyways,
you're preaching to the choir here, sir.
Know. I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Avila.
Thank you. Also, regarding those tracks, they cause damage to our police vehicles. They obstruct the, when they're chasing after another vehicle. And I've asked about whether or not we could put those metal thresholds that do exist in other railroad areas within the county to help limit the damage on our vehicles. So just keep that on the list of long things to discuss with them.
Will do.
Thank you. And then with regards to the landscaping itself, who does like a ride along with Brightview? In the communities where I'm on the board and I have to engage in negotiating the landscaping contracts and do monthly, quarterly drive-alongs, I drive around with the landscaper and I say, look, that palm tree doesn't have a head on it. We need to cut that down. Or look at those bushes over there. They're neglected. Who's doing that?
That's the director.
Which director?
Pedro.
Okay, perfect.
Parks director.
All right, perfect. So, I mean, the city is by far really large for Pedro alone to do it. So, I mean, if we were to do a drive around, do we call Pedro? Do we call you? Or can we call Brightview?
I would prefer you call us, and we'll be more than happy to set it up.
Okay, will do.
Okay.
Is a representative of Brightview with us tonight?
I don't believe so.
This kind of contract, and they don't bother to show up to even hear these concerns. Just saying. Board Member Bailey.
Thank you, Chairman. Did you find out an estimate of how much it would be to cover the railroad that the county is not? Ballpark? Because here we're trying to figure out how to help the folks at Turner Circle, whose association sunsetted, and we're going to cover something for the county, but instead fine a bunch of homeowners who are now faced to figure out a way that they need to cover all of this shared property.
It's not the county. It's a multi-billion-dollar railroad company.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was the county who was
Let's make
paying
it more
for
egregious.
And it's $900 a month. And so once again, we want to hold them accountable, and we're trying to, but once again, we can't levy fines against them. That's the issue.
That sounds like a punch list item for our legislative wish list next year, Mr. Fuentes.
Mr. Mayor? Yeah. If I could ask, I know, again, in the past I've stated my objection to 3-year contracts. Can we limit this to 1 year and look at going out to rebid on this? Again, just a thought for the rest of the
Are we
council.
limited
Sorry.
because it was bid that way?
It was bidded out that way. I'll defer to Matt.
You could try, but they don't. I would say by changing the term of which you bid, they wouldn't be honored. They wouldn't necessarily be obligated to meet that once you change the term.
Do we have to award this bid tonight? It's something else that we can take another look at.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
We don't have to award this bid tonight.
Our agreement with them expires this, well, we're doing month-by-month extensions right now, correct? So we don't have to award it. We don't have to award it. I mean, the thing about the 3-year contract is trying to maintain the same pricing for budgeting reasons. With that being said, there is the clause there allowing the manager to be able to pay a little bit more. I think it's 10%, if I'm not mistaken, if the price goes up.
Well, as fuel prices go up or down, and they're going to fluctuate over the next couple of years, and we're still going to get hit with a higher cost. My thought is I can't support this tonight, but the rest of you all just think about it. We've had these discussions in the past about 3-year contracts. Sometimes they benefit us, sometimes they don't. Just a thought. That's all. Thank you, Mr.
Well, and to Board Member Fletcher's point, this contract covers items, meaning we pay for items that the inmate crews used to cover. This contract, as potentially awarded, gives the manager the right to pull those items out once we regain those inmate work crews so that that work can be done at a much less costly level. So, that just being one of the examples that could be a significant downward adjustment in the favor of the city. Now, I agree with you on the 3-year deals, Board Member Fletcher, but there's got some discretion baked into this proposal for the manager to pull certain items out of performance by Brightview.
You are correct, Mayor.
Thank you.
And the plan is, once we do get the trustees back online, is to actually reduce the contract.
Mayor?
Board Member Roth.
Thank you. And just another, point of interest, when they went through the exercise for the bidding process, how far below was Brightview to the next nearest bid? Just to give you a point of reference, if you hadn't seen it. If they didn't bid this.
Next lowest bid was not apples to apples, but for example, Brightview for the Group 1, which is city properties, was $370,000. The next group that came in second lowest, okay, which did not meet all the matching criteria. Okay, for example, so Brightview, $774,000. The next lowest was Tropical Lawn Maintenance, which was $680,000. Tropical Maintenance did not put in for a Group 2, so there's no cost there. So Brightview, $370,000. Tropical Lawn, $631,000. In terms of Group 3, which is the alleyways and railroads, $31,000. Tropical Lawn, $49,000. So in those two categories, they came in much higher. So if I go to the next bidder, who did fill in all three categories, once again, Brightview, $747,000. The next one, meeting all the criteria, SFM, $1,325,000. So it's substantially less.
Right. So that's kind of my point, that if we put this exercise out there each year, in this particular case, and the lowest prevailing bidder didn't bid next year, we could be stuck with a bid that's twice what we're paying today. So it's just a thought process and an exercise to go through when considering the contract of 3 years versus a 1-year contract. It's a lot of work and effort that goes into this bid process. So it might be, healthy to talk about a 1-year commitment, but it may cost us in the long run if we don't have a 3-year commitment. So, thank you, Mayor.
I'm sorry, and once again, Councilman, the idea of the 3-year contract is to stabilize the pricing, number one, for budgeting purposes, but then also to hold the vendor to the pricing over a longer period of time.
Member Fletcher.
Again, not to belabor the conversation, but I believe these outside entities continue to take advantage of cities and communities with their bid processes, and we don't hold them to the fire. That's the problem. We're not standing up and saying, that cost is not sufficient, or you're not providing us adequate background for those costs. So I think that's our fault. And maybe we need to have workshops for these bid specifications so people understand what we actually want, and that way everything's understood and, apples to apples are being met. Again, I think at times we just don't look at the overall cost of things, and we take the lowest bid, which always isn't the lowest bid. That's all.
Board Member Avila.
Thank you. Jerry, can you, are you sure that the bid that D&D Tree Farms made for $631,000, it wasn't a combination of Group 1 and 2?
In fact, Councilwoman, we actually did a best and final bid offer or request from them, and they came back with what they have.
So their bid for the $631,000 did not include any medians or right-of-ways. We're sure about that because the combination of, it seems as though they lumped it together in Group 1, but unless I see the actual itemization of what was included, I wouldn't be able to tell. That was clarified, and 100% we're sure about that?
We have a bid breakdown, and that is correct. That's just for the Phase 1.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know that talking about the difference between the two bids is really apples. To Board Member Ross' point, is really apples to apples. Because from where I sit, Brightview can afford to underbid everyone else because they have not been held accountable during my entire time in this go-around, almost 3 years. And I think their performance has been poor at best. Those of you that deal with them or live in associations where they do the work may have a different perspective, but as for their performance at a city level is, to me, unacceptable.
Mayor, I agree with you, but there's a new sheriff in town, and we're going to hold them accountable, okay?
Hold you to it.
Yeah, and I do agree with you as well, Mayor. Putting mulch next to the street or to the curb is going to cause that drain out. What Board Member Fletcher was saying. You have to have that border of grass to keep the mulch in. I mean, that's rookie mistakes there.
Yes, ma'am.
They know better.
Agreed.
They're doing what already exists, and we don't want what already exists. Okay.
And while we're belaboring the night, and I only know this because it was when I sat on planning and zoning before the year 2000, I believe you'll find in the code a prohibition against cypress mulch. Because I remember when that came forward, and I voted against it because I wanted to know then who was going to be the mulch police. Look in the code. Cypress mulch is prohibited.
We'll check it out.
All right. I believe we have a motion and a second to approve this item for landscaping services within the CRA. Think for any public comment. I thought
Board Member Bailey.
Bailey
and
made the
seconded by
motion,
Board Member
and Faircloth
Faircloth.
Staggers seconded the motion, correct? You didn't second the motion?
I don't
Okay.
think.
I swore we had a...
Because we were between the 3 years and the 1 year.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
All right, moved by the Vice Chair, and a clear second by Councilwoman Faircloth Staggers. All right, any public comment? Close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. All right, 5-2. What's that? Yeah, we are. All right. Madam Director, is there anything further?
No, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
No, sir.
Thank you. Board members?
No, sir.
All right, we'll declare this meeting adjourned, and we're going to take at least a 10-minute break before we commence the Committee of the Whole meeting. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, June 15th, 2022, and it is 7:38 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey. Here. Councilwoman Faircloth Staggers. Councilman Roth.
Here.
Councilwoman Avila. Here. Councilman Fletcher. Here. Vice Mayor Guzman.
Here.
Mayor Lawson.
Here. All right, Mr. Manager, are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals tonight?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, our first item is tab 1, approval of the May 10th, 2022 Committee of the Whole minutes. We have a motion to approve. Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilman Roth. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item, motion to place car number 3523 on the council agenda. Grant for gunshot detection technology and community outreach program. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. The city has applied for and received a grant from the Florida Department of Health in the amount of $320,020 to fund the first year of gunshot detection technology and associated community outreach program. The purpose of this program is to increase solvability of criminal cases, reduce gun violence, and build community trust. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement and establish a budget for the grant award from the Florida Department of Health in the amount of $320,020 for gunshot detection technology and community outreach activities. This grant requires no matching funds.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any initial questions or comments from council? Councilman Roth.
Thank you, Mayor. Who's Pamela Springle? Is she here? Thank you. Thank you for getting us this grant. You wrote this one, right? Congratulations. Thank you for that.
We're very lucky to have Pam.
Further, Vice Mayor Guzman.
I'd like to understand a little bit more about the gunshotter program. I understand that it's sensors that are on. Go ahead, sir.
Vice Mayor, to your question, the next item is actually the award, and we have the representatives here that can answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
Okay. Wait a minute. I think Councilwoman Bailey had a question.
Thank you, Mayor. So then we can talk about details and next year's everything.
Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any public comment? Let's get Mr. Kraft a microphone.
Mr. Kraft, this is the grant part. I'm telling him this is the grant part, not the.
Yeah. All right, just Mr. Kraft, if it matters, this is the grant part, not the purchase of the system.
This is the grant part just for the money?
This is to accept an award of a grant. The next item is to spend that money on the actual system.
Then I wait for the next one.
Just hang on to the microphone. Okay. Close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next item, tab 3. Motion to place car number 3556 on the council agenda, the award of RFP number 2022-16 gunfire detection system. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This purchase is for the acoustic listening system that detects the sound of gunfire and pinpoints the exact location of gunfire through triangulation, allowing law enforcement to be dispatched in less than 60 seconds to the location in an effort to save lives and locate the precise crime scene. This product will increase solvability of criminal cases, curb gun violence, and help foster community trust. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the City Manager to negotiate and execute an agreement with ShotSpotter, Inc. for the award of RFP 2022-16 Gunfire Detection System for a total not to exceed $250,000. In addition, this approval authorizes a contingency of $10,000 for any unforeseen conditions that may arise during the deployment. This is a one-year agreement with the option to extend for 2 additional one-year periods upon the same terms and conditions and mutually written consent of both parties. This purchase will be funded by the Florida Department of Health grant that was just approved.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Vice Mayor Guzman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this program is going to help our city tremendously. I also wanted to ask a few questions on the procedure. What I understand from this program is there are sensors, acoustic sensors throughout a specific area. Those sensors will determine what is the difference between a gunshot and what could be fireworks, and it'll basically pinpoint where that shot came from. So the question is, once that information gets dispatched to whoever is initially receiving that information, how does it get to our police department's dispatch and then from dispatch to the officers on patrol on the road?
So that's a great question. It's a pleasure to be here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ron Jacobs. I'm a sales director here. I'm born and raised in Orlando, Florida, and I'm also a former police officer. Did 11 years and left as a lead homicide and crimes against children investigator. Now, to answer your question, sir, once the alert goes off, it goes to something called our Incident Review Center. It's a manned 24/7 facility. Kind of looks like your 911 dispatch center. So they're sitting here with their earphones on, listening to every bang, boom, and pop. And when they confirm it's gunfire by making sure the sensors were working properly, by listening to the trained ear to make sure it's gunfire, they dispatch it. And it goes straight to the officers' patrol cars, their cell phones, and also 911 all at the same time. So we actually dispatch it directly to the officers on all 3 items and the 911. So that way the officers can respond immediately and not have to wait to be dispatched. So they get there quickly. And we do that all less than 60 seconds.
Okay, so there's a person sitting with headphones that's listening for gunshots. It's not an automatic reception of gunfire that the sensors are picking up throughout the community?
That's correct. So if we sent you every bang, boom, and pop, you would have a lot of false negatives. So we want to make sure we send you to actual gunfire. So we'll take the sound of what sounded like gunfire, and then we send it through our algorithm. And then it goes through a machine classification process that says, hey, this is possibly gunfire. And then once we eliminate all the garbage, per se, that's not gunfire, and then it goes to the individual and the trained ear that actually listens to it to make sure that it is gunfire.
Okay.
The sensors were working properly, and then we send the alert because we don't want to send you false alerts because we have a service level agreement that says we're going to send you 90% of the gunfire.
Got it. And after that information is sent to our police department, what happens then?
Say it one more time, I'm sorry.
After the information is disseminated to our police department, what happens from our police department, the procedures, which is a question for Captain Dijon?
Once we receive the information, either through our dispatch or it pops up on the officers' laptops, they'll immediately respond to the area. It's not going to be the area in which normally if somebody calls in a gunshot, they normally would go to that residence or the area of that residence. Now, we all know that sound travels, especially at night. This is going to send us specifically right to the area where that gunshot occurs within, I believe it's 25 feet of actually where the gunshot was fired. So it's going to give us a more precise location to quickly respond If there's anybody injured as a result of gunfire, we can immediately begin treatment, or if the subject's still on scene, still engaged with gunfire, then we can take appropriate action.
Okay. So the only time that if somebody is doing a drive-by, it's hard to detect. You're still going to detect where that drive-by happened, but if they're in a car moving, it doesn't follow them.
No, but it may give us a direction of travel. As the vehicle's moving and they're continuing to fire from the vehicle, it will give us a result of the placement of those shots in succession.
I do also like to mention on the line, I do have my colleague who's a solutions expert in case there's something that may qualify him to answer more than me. He's on the line. His name is Ron Teachman.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. I just heard the ghost of Councilman Flesher, Councilman Shelley, asking, does this record voices?
So this takes this. So when we put our sensors up, it's strategically placed. So it could be 3 stories high, 5 stories high. It really depends on how the infrastructure is going to have to be built, like how tall buildings are, how low they are. So it really determines. So people much smarter than me developed this infrastructure, and it records 1 second before and 1 second after the gunfire. If someone was to scream or a dog barked and we picked it up,
Okay.
it's unintentional, but we would.
But it's
we would
not a
collect that
current
data.
streaming recording?
No, ma'am. It's
Okay.
not constantly recording and saving any data whatsoever.
Okay. As far as do you have a percentage of accuracy for determining between fireworks, let's say, and gunshots?
So what I can tell you is we provide a service level agreement to every one of our customers that says we are going to collect 90% of actual unsuppressed gunfire and provide it to you. That is in our service level agreement.
So there could be a 10% chance that an officer went out and it wasn't gunfire related?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then a
Jake?
question. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just want to clarify on that. Our service level agreement is a guaranteed notification of actual gunfire. We've had an outside auditing firm look at our performance over the last 2 years, and the false positive rate was 0.5%. That's not a 10% error rate. What Jake is explaining is that we guarantee at least 90% notification, and our performance over the last 2 years was at 97%. So we missed 3% of actual gunfire. We only send officers on what they consider a false positive 0.5% of the time. Just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Ron.
That's a very good classification. And the radius is Homestead, all of Homestead?
No, ma'am. It's going to be approximately 3 square miles that we have covered. That this comes from the police department, and it's data driven.
All right, so one quick question for Captain. This was a couple months ago that I did a CPR class. Usually I do it at my preschool, and it's very preschool oriented. This one was a little different, and they spoke about what happens if you were ever around somebody that had a gunshot wound, that the first thing you do when you call 911 is not say that it was a gunshot wound, because the police would enter in a different fashion, possibly wait for backup. I just want to make sure that with this, that's not putting any of our residents at risk, and you're not looking at it in any different way than you did before.
No, it would probably actually be a better response, because we're going to go directly to where the location where somebody may need help. As far as, we're not going to wait for backup when there's a shooting. We're going to go in, whether it's the first man by himself or a team of individuals. They're going to go respond immediately to the threat.
I thought so. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Fletcher?
Thank you. I have some experience with this type of technology in my former industry, but is this the same system that Miami-Dade County currently has in operation in neighboring localities?
Yes, sir.
Is there a way for us to tie into their system so when they're getting notifications of, say, on their north end of their city, that we're getting a notification that somebody may be coming our way, that helps the police help apprehend those criminals potentially?
Yes. So what we can do is if there's an area, so there's no charge for that, and we do this on a regular basis. So if there's an area where Miami-Dade unincorporated meets Homestead and there's gunfire, say I don't know if they're going to have coverage area there in Miami-Dade, but let's just say Homestead. And Homestead PD wants to share the data with Miami-Dade in case there's a deputy there that could respond or an officer there that could respond quicker. We could actually provide that to them because they have the access and availability to use the tool on their app. And vice versa, if there's coverage there on the border of Homestead and Miami-Dade unincorporated, we can share that data so you both get the alert at the same time. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's going to be key to the overall success of the program long term, because right now we're going to do a 3 square mile area, but the city of Homestead's a little larger than that. So we're going to have to look at, possibly expanding this in the future.
And Councilman, if I can add to that, Miami-Dade County does have this system on our north side, especially in Leisure City, and we do get information frequently from them through dispatch that they are receiving ShotSpotter calls in those areas. So it would only benefit us on that side of town, just south of Leisure City.
I got you, but now it's going to be direct to the laptop rather than through dispatch or to their phone.
Correct.
And then now we go after the county to go get these funds to get this installed in other areas that surround us. So I got that. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Councilwoman Avila.
Thank you. I want to consistently evaluate this program throughout the year during the first year that we have the funding for it. So when we have those email updates that come through HPD, if we can, identify that, this was a result of ShotSpotter, or this, ShotSpotter helped us do X, Y, Z today, or what have you, that'll be very helpful for me in the future when it comes time to renew or to issue or allocate funding to continue the program. So I support it tonight, but I'll be monitoring its success, and I look forward to it being very successful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, and I'm sure there's also analytics that are available that we can pull reports, on a periodic basis just to provide that information to the council.
Okay. Thank you. Question, you talked about the process from the time the sound is detected to when your algorithms analyze it and then your live person makes the determination. On average, just out of curiosity, what is that time frame? What's the lag between the crack of the gunfire to the time it hits the officer's laptop in the car?
So I'm going to answer that, and I'm going to have Ron clarify this for me. So our SLA says we're going to have it sent to you less than 60 seconds, so under 60 seconds. I believe, Ron, our last year, either 2019 or 2020, or year are we in? 2020 average, was 38 seconds, was our average time of gunfire to dispatch of officer, or notifying the officer. Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 38%?
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. If I can expand on that for a moment. You're correct, Jake. What I would say is, to the mayor's question, it depends on the acoustic event. The machine classification that filters out the non-gunfire noises, that takes a matter of a few seconds. What takes us a few seconds longer is for the human review, where they listen to the recording of the gunshots, they look at the waveform configuration, and they look at the sense of participation. Sense of participation being omnidirectional, circular, indicates it's not gunfire. Directionality shows a linear participation, indicating gunfire. Having to listen to the recording once or twice, on occasion getting a second reviewer to put eyes and ears on the event so that we're precise in what we dispatch, that's what takes us on average 38, maybe 45 seconds, contractually guaranteed in under 60. And I can tell you that it's over 60 seconds for an eyewitness to contemplate whether to call 911, and it may take minutes to go through the 911 system because of the questions that are required by the call taker and then send it to the dispatcher. We're going to have a police officer en route to the precise location to save lives and to get to the crime scene effectively. And again, that whole process guaranteed is under 60 seconds.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Just, curiosity, kind of, what that takes. And then you may want to chime in, but Mr. Manager, to the police department, is this system going to require any new personnel, hardware, or software that are not covered by the grant? Or let me rephrase that. Any new other hardware, software, or personnel connection with this system?
No additional equipment or personnel.
Music to my ears. Thank you.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
To Captain, what is the 3-mile radius that has been selected in the data that was used? I mean, just, where is it? You want to say where it is?
Sidebar.
Okay, the second question I had was...
We don't tell the bad guys where the cameras are.
Second question I had was, if we don't get funded, or this grant doesn't get awarded next year, would we continue with the program at its current price?
Councilman, obviously, this is a one-year contract, and our decision is going to be data-driven, correct? So at the end of 1 year, we see what the stats are. If it's a program that's working for us and the police are very happy with it and council is happy with it, we would go ahead and extend that contract. If we see, listen, we're really not getting a return on this investment, then we can end the contract. It's only 1 year. We can extend it for 2 additional 1-year periods, right? And the good thing is that at least this first year, the cost is covered for us. So it's basically a pilot program. And once again, if it's really working for us, we might even expand the ShotSpotter program. So in the end, it's all data-driven.
Okay, and what are we going to use to measure the results? Is it number of arrests, number of saved lives, number of...
Captain?
Number one, it's going to be the value of the product. Is the product actually showing us that these are actual gunshots that we are detecting? Also, it's going to be the solvability of cases. Being able to go out there and respond quickly and maybe catch somebody in the act, and it's going to create a stronger solvability. That solvability is also going to arise from gaining public trust and community trust. The more they see the officers responding to the location and actually given the visual appearance that officers are actually in the community doing something to try to end gun violence, it's going to gain the community trust. So that's going to be a huge value in that. If none of these things come together, then that'll determine whether this is successful or not.
Okay. Thank you, sir. How many other cities does ShotSpotter are operating in?
Well over 125.
And in those cities, do some cover the entire city, or are they always put in specific?
No, you're not going to want to cover you're going to want to cover based on the data where the gunfire is actually occurring.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Sure. Councilwoman
Okay,
Fairclough.
thank you. I just have a quick question. So you mentioned you're in about 125 municipalities, but if we can drill that down, I know you're in Miami-Dade County. I believe you're in Miami Gardens, where you're operating in Miami Gardens. So in speaking about the success of the program, what has that success looked like in some of the local municipalities? What has been the return on investment?
Ron, do you want to try answering that one? The success, I mean, let me start it, Ron, if you could jump in maybe with another one. So to back up a little bit to the Vice Mayor's question about how do you measure success, you're assigned a customer success director, and every customer success director has, I believe, 25 plus years experience, and they've utilized ShotSpotter. So you're going to be assigned one. So they help you on best practices, how to measure success. We actually go through that with you, and every year we come out and we tell you the success. What percent of the community is calling 911 when there's actual gunfire? I can speak for Miami-Dade off the top of my head because recently we did an annual account review, is what I'm mentioning, so every year we come out. Without getting too detailed, because it's Miami-Dade, I can tell you less than 6% was calling 911 in their coverage area, which means there's a lot of gunfire that the community was not calling 911 on, and that they're actually responding to. That was confirmed gunfire. So to measure in that portion of success, nobody's calling 911. So that's the whole purpose. It's one of the main purposes of getting ShotSpotter is because for several reasons, people don't call 911, whether they don't want to get involved or they think it's fireworks, or they really weren't sure. And because of the echoing, when they do call 911, they say, I heard the gunfire, right? So officers are responding, going to a typical area, looking, and on average, it's 780 feet away based on our clientele of where the actual shooting occurred from where the caller was at. So we put that together and we show you on a yearly basis. I would, I guess, encourage you to speak to Miami-Dade, City of Miami, than take it from me. And without disclosing too much information of what I can and can't say, Miami-Dade, City of Miami, Miami Gardens are wonderful customers of ours, as well as Broward County, and working our way up to Palm Beach County with great success. And to even take it a step further, if you go to ShotSpotter.com and go to the very bottom and click cities, we list out every customer we have, and you're welcome to reach out to any customer, especially here in Miami-Dade and anywhere you would like. Ron, did you want to touch on something there?
Yeah, I would just add, since you're looking at other Florida customers, and again, Jake can provide that list. On our website, we also post some of the results that our customers have shared. For example, Fort Myers experienced a 25% reduction in homicides, West Palm Beach a 29% reduction, and the City of Miami a 35% reduction. I was just at the U.S. Conference of Mayors in Reno last week, and president of that organization, Miami Mayor Suarez, spoke openly the plenary session about the success they've had in Miami with ShotSpotter. We have a very strong customer base, very high loyalty and renewal rate. We welcome you to talk to any of your Florida counterparts or anyone across the country and hear from them testimonials regarding how they measure success, whether it's reductions in homicides, reductions in persons shot, solvability. But I would also emphasize, as Captain said earlier, the community trust factor. Just to reiterate, we've had outside auditing showing that over 80% of gunfire goes unreported. Conversely, only 20% or less gets called into 911, as my colleague was just saying why that happens. So the response is never in many communities that the police don't come because nobody called. And often the residents, not knowing that nobody called, assuming that the police are on mission, think the police don't care. This builds community trust by giving the police an opportunity for comprehensive response, and that leads to saving lives, reducing crime, and community engagement. So with several different metric points, we hope to see that same success in the city of Homestead. We look for the opportunity to help the police department better serve and protect.
Thank you. On the website, it has the cities that you're in, but it doesn't drill down to the specific municipalities.
It would be the police department for that city. So if it said Tampa, Florida, it would be the city of Tampa. If there was a county, it should say county on there. But majority of our
it just
customers.
has dots. It doesn't say. It just shows a concentration in Deep South Dade. I was just particularly interested in the municipalities in Miami-Dade County and what that success looked like. But I can speak to them directly because it's not clear on here.
And I got something here that just brought to my attention. So, is it Commissioner McGee, when his, I believe it was his uncle, was shot mowing the lawn, or nephew shot mowing the yard, his lawn. ShotSpotter is the one that notified law enforcement. Nobody called 911. So that just tells you, we're here to help save lives.
No, I think it's great. And oftentimes they don't call because it's just kind of normalized in the area. So as opposed to calling 911, they just duck and hide for cover.
You said it. You're 100% right.
That's exactly why it's happening. So.
Yep.
I'm Joe Rodriguez from ShotSpotter. I just want to add a couple things.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, I'm Joe Rodriguez from ShotSpotter, and I just wanted to add a couple comments, specifically answering your question. In Dade County, we have the City of Miami, we have Miami Gardens, and we have Miami-Dade. All these clients have been clients with ShotSpotter for many years. They've all renewed their contracts every year. I believe the City of Miami had a reduction a few years ago of nearly 40% on homicides. Not only have they renewed every single year, but Miami-Dade has expanded substantially, and I believe the City of Miami has as well. Because of that, and because of our footprint in Miami-Dade, in Broward County, over the last year or two, we started with Fort Lauderdale. Now we have Broward Sheriff's Office, and we have several other municipalities that have joined us in Broward County and we're in Palm Beach and a few other agencies. So we have a huge footprint in South Florida. One of the things that we tell our clients is the renewal rates that we have are around 99% a year. I believe they were at 100%. Our systems aren't cheap, we know that, but they're very, very effective. And the fact that these agencies are renewing every year tells you the value that the system brings.
I definitely think this is a value add to the community, and I look forward to supporting it tonight. On council, historically, we like to look at the numbers and the metrics. So that is why we're asking those questions. Sure. So if we have to reach out to the municipalities, we will, but we just wanted that information. Wanted to see if you had that information tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman, in answer to your question, we will get you that list and the contact names, so you'll have it readily available.
Councilman Ross?
Flip a coin. Just a couple observations. One, everybody knows I listen to the police radio a lot, and since the topic had come up, I noticed more and more awareness that I was hearing of shots fired in the city and nobody know where to go. So this is going to be a very much added, weapon in the police department's advantage. But what do you do on the 4th of July? Do you turn it off just for that night? I mean, you're going to hear a lot of gunshots, I'm sure, not just here, all over the county. But that was just a joke, but I just thought I'd bring it up because the 4th of July is like right around the corner. So
it's a challenge, and
I can imagine.
We have, New Year's Eve as well.
I can imagine.
But we have a way of, we have a really strong way of telling the difference between fireworks and gunshots.
Yeah.
And one of the things they look at is they analyze the sound wave. And the gunshot is really directional, where a firework, when you look at the sound wave, is kind of all over the place. So that's one of the reasons why we don't want to just send the police officer to the dot right away. Right? We've got to kind of look at it, the initial algorithms, the classification. That's not 100%. You really need a human to look at it very quickly and make that decision. So, we're a system that we're very assured our false positive rate is it's less than 1%.
No, I get it.
Or less than half of 1%.
I get it. Yeah, I'm a big supporter of this, and I can't wait to see the data that comes out after a year to see how many things had actually occurred in the city, how many were false negatives, but how many people it actually helped. So I'll definitely be supporting this tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Avila?
Thank you. You mentioned that each account gets a shot spotter director. Is that what you said?
You each get a customer success director. Yes, ma'am.
Customer success director. Do we know who our director is going to be? Have they been introduced to our HPD department?
I believe in the RFP, off the top of my head, it's Paul Lazinski. Unless something changes, he's a retired Tampa police officer, and he utilized ShotSpotter. And he was also our program manager, kind of like how Captain DeJean may be our program manager. He was a program manager over there, and as well adversed within ShotSpotter.
Okay, and then my understanding is, that this program can identify the shots, but does it identify how many shooters? Can it tell if there's 2 guns at the incident?
It's a really good question. So it tells you if there's more than 1 shooter. It can't tell you how many. It can tell you if there's more than 1. And then it lays it out in a footprint. Going a step further, is it gives you a report within 60 seconds as well, so that report lays out where the first shot was fired, the second shot was fired, the third, and it breaks it down. And it tells you by exact location where each shot was fired, so you can use it for your investigative purposes. So we can only tell you if there's more than 1. Would be the only way. We couldn't tell you if there's like 4 or 5.
Okay, and then are we able to move the sensors around if we decide, where we initially placed the sensors aren't really the best, or is that something that can be moved during the year?
We have a program that we can provide mobility after a year, but what we see is most agencies see that the gunfire problems typically don't change that much, but we can offer a mobility program to move them to another area after a year. But we don't see agencies doing that very often.
That's interesting, because ideally you have the program to try to help reduce the gunfire in a certain area and continue to expand and eliminate. But it sounds like it doesn't go away. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it doesn't go away. What they end up doing is if they're reducing the gunfire in specific areas, they don't want to take it away because they feel that if they take it away, they're no longer going to know where the gunshots are. So typically what we see is if they still have some problem areas, they'll expand. That's why you do the expansion.
Thank you, and that's a good point because this is very reactive in the sense of the gun is fired and we're sending units out. What we need to, as a council, we need to continue to focus on being proactive and engaging with the families in these areas to provide the social support that they need, the advocacy, the resources. You know, you've heard me mention it many times before. Let's not forget that this is, this is reactive. It's not proactive. So as much as I love the fact that we have the grant and the tool in our toolbox, I'd like to see more proactiveness with these particular areas. Okay. And then,
Councilwoman, if I may,
yes.
I'd like to add to what your statement is that it is part of our overall plan. It's not only just responding using this technology to try to help curb the gun violence, but it's also going to be about education. And as more officers are present in the community and they're actually going door to door following up on some of these gunshots, we're gaining that community trust, and then we're spreading the information on trying to reduce the gun violence and getting going back to the old adage of see something, say something.
Councilwoman, if I may, we also
Jake?
have I was just about to say it, Ron. You're going to talk about the community engagement.
It's kind of hard for me to hear him, but if you
I'll
want to
talk
say
about it.
Yeah, thank you.
So we also have a community engagement. So they're not assigned to every account. They're assigned to the company. What that basically means is what you just said. We need to educate. What they do is they'll go out into the community and educate. If they determine there's gunfire around certain schools, they go into the schools and talk to the counselors and let them know what's going on. There's no charge for this. Right? This is all part of the purchase.
Who is they?
The community engagement officer.
That's in addition to the customer satisfaction director?
It's not. It's an addition, yeah. It's a service that we offer at no cost. And they come out, and when I say they, the community engagement officer, he'll come out and he communicates to any HOA meetings, if he needs to talk to any activists in the community to help engage. He helps out within the school system, as mentioned. His job is to educate, to make sure these children growing up don't realize this is the norm, because it's not the norm.
That person will be reporting to who?
It would be reporting to the program manager here. So if it was Captain Dijon, you would go through me and ask, or the community customer success director, and we would get him involved. And when I say he's Gerard Tate. He's a Dr. Gerard Tate. His family, he's from Chicago, and his family actually still lives in a coverage area of ShotSpotter. So he's very familiar with ShotSpotter and the area of where coverage sometimes is at. And his family lives in a coverage area. So he's a very great resource to provide education and help with mental health.
Thank you. And if you can pass along the message, I'd like to have a face-to-face meeting with them. And I look forward to hearing about the recommendations as the year goes on specifically for our community and how this program can help. And last but not least, with regards to the maintenance of the sensors, that's all built into this contract. You know, if the lightning strikes it, electrical outlet goes out, or whatever the case is, all that is covered 100%.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so one breaks, it gets replaced within how quick of a turnaround?
So when we build the infrastructure, we overbuild it on purpose because we want to do redundancy. So that way, right? We're in South Florida. We have a lot of experience with hurricanes. Mm-hmm. I live here as well. If a sensor goes out, we want to make sure there's one next to it. So if a sensor goes out, it's not going to mess up the system. It's when it gets to a certain limit, or when there's too many sensors are out in a certain area, then we come out to ensure that the coverage area is properly built.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anything further? All right, we have, is that you? Moved by the Vice Mayor to approve, second by Councilman Roth. We're going to have public comments, Mr. Kraft, right now. Go ahead.
Thank you. ShotSpotter is an animal that has been around for a long time. It was developed up in Chicago. And up in Chicago, they have a lot of gangbangers. And those gangbangers, they interacted with ShotSpotter, and ShotSpotter helped in many ways, right? ShotSpotter is a tool in the toolbox for crime prevention. It's like giving the officer an extra tool in his toolbox. It doesn't replace the officer. So by giving our police department $300,000 or something like that for this year, they needed that. They will need that next year too, whether they will have a grant for it or not have a grant for it. That means we will have to pay them if we don't have the grant for it. And what you can become, do we get the cameras with it? It can be combined with cameras.
Systems as well.
Because if you combine it with cameras and AI, then you have a way better system, because then you basically have the ability to look into a database, and then you can see who the perpetrator are in the area. In areas where ShotSpotter have been put up, there have been incidents where the people who came out to replace it, when they have been dismantled by the bad guys, they was intimidated by the bad guys, so it didn't came up again. But down here, our bad guys are hopefully not that bad, so we will be able to deal with it. But let's our police officers have the system, because it will be a valuable asset for them. There's another thing I want to ask about. Back in the days, it was called the MP5 system, because it was designed for the 9mm cartridge. It has a very distinctive sound. And then there was a lot of different things where they could detect a shotgun or a rifle or something that was suppressed. Nowadays, criminals use suppressors, so it's a whole different animal when you look at the sound signature. But this one here is a major step forward for the police department in a good asset to their toolbox. Let them have it. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. Appreciate your input. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item is the motion to place car number 3553 on the council agenda, the opioid litigation participation agreement. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to resolution number R 2021-0892, the City Council of Homestead, Florida, entered into a Florida Memorandum of Understanding, which sets forth the framework of a unified plan for the proposed allocation and use of opioid settlement proceeds. The city subsequently executed 3 participation agreements for the settlement of claims with Meckerson Corporation, Cardinal Health, Inc., AmerisourceBergen Corporation, and Endo Pharmaceuticals, Inc. The firms that represent the city have now provided an additional participation agreement for consideration in the settlement of claims. Due to the numerous amounts of claims, staff is also seeking authorization to allow the city manager to execute all future participation agreements. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the participation agreement with Walgreens and all future participation agreements.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions or comments from council? We have a motion to approve. Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. Any public comment? Close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, next item, tab 5. Motion to place car number 3552 on the council agenda, the City of Homestead surplus property. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Several city departments through procurement have determined that the attached list of miscellaneous items have outlived their usefulness and are no longer adequate for their intended purpose. Since it is no longer cost-effective to keep these items in operation, the city will auction them off as surplus. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to surplus the attached list of miscellaneous items that will be sold by means of an online auction or disposed of by other authorized procedures as per City Code Section 2440, surplus property.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Go ahead. Moved by Councilman Roth. Seconded by Councilwoman Avila. Any public comment? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next item is tab 6, motion to place car number 3521 on the council agenda, replacement of the control house roof at McMinn Station. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. This award is for the replacement of the existing roof for the control house located at the McMinn substation, which has outlived its usefulness. Our understanding is the roof's approximately 40 years old. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Garland DBS, Inc. for the replacement of the control house roof at the McMinn substation for a total of $64,404. This authorization will also allow the manager to accept a price increase of up to 10% via change orders for any unforeseen conditions or changes required for the replacement of the roof, and $8,000 demobilization and remobilization fee in the event of a hurricane during the construction phase. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP 2294.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Have a motion to approve. Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by the Vice Mayor. Any public comment? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next item is tab 7. Motion to place car number 3522 on the council agenda, ITB number 2022-13, citywide landscape maintenance services. Haven't heard that before tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, as Kamitra had said, the sister car to the one that was just approved by the CRA board. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to award ITB 2022-13 to Brightview Landscape Services, Inc. for citywide landscape maintenance services for Group 1 through 4 and miscellaneous items for an estimated annual expense of $558,984.32 per year.
Question or comment from council? Motion to approve. Moved by Councilman Ross, seconded by Councilwoman Bailey. Any public comment? Close public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Were you a nay, Councilman Fletcher? All right, 2 nays. All right, moving right along. Tab number 8. Motion to place car number 3526 on the council agenda. Request for waiver of usage fees. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The Miami-Dade County State Attorney's Office would like to host a free seal and expunge event which aids in crime prevention, better careers, educational, and housing opportunities. They will have an assistant state attorneys, notaries, publics, clerks, computer background, check tables, and fingerprinters to be present. The application process is free to the public. The Miami-Dade County State Attorney's Office is requesting that Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to approve a waiver of usage fees in the amount of $200 for the use of the FICO Williams Community Center Banquet Hall on Thursday, November 17th, 2022. The setup will commence at 2 p.m. and the event will be from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. According to the City Code, Chapter 20, Section 2011, recreational fees, the City Council sets fees and has the right to waive park and recreation fees by a majority vote.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I'll take care of that fee.
All right.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the councilman.
Councilman Roth said that he would take care of the fee. Therefore,
Okay.
this item is moot.
Yeah, and if anybody else wants to jump on board, that's fine too. I'll share the wealth.
Thank you.
There you go.
Bigger picture, let's revisit these fees and talk about giving some managerial discretion for these kinds of items so that we don't have to take time in an agenda and prepare the background and spend the time here.
We'll definitely take council direction on these, so absolutely.
Any issue with looking at that for the coming budget year? Look, I know the pendulum swings far in both directions, but we've got to find some middle ground here. Okay, moving right along. Next is tab 9. Motion to place car number 3541 on the council agenda, Florida Division of Historical Resources, special category program grant application. Mr. Mann.
Mayor, the City of Homestead is applying for a $107,500 grant from the Florida Division of Historical Resources Special Category Program for the restoration of the Seminole Theater. The restoration will include waterproofing and new exterior paint for a total of $215,000. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to apply for the Florida Division of Historical Resources Special Category Program in the amount of $107,500 for the Homestead Seminole Theater restorations. This grant requires $107,500 in matching funds, which will come from the general fund.
Thank you. Councilman Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I understand we have to provide a grant of a matching fund of $107,500. Can we ask other agencies to help offset that cost, or other 501c3s who might be in the benefit of?
We'll definitely take a look at the grant. It might be a requirement that it has to be a match and match. Sometimes they'll let you piggyback off another grant, but we'll double check that. If we can, we will definitely do it. But this is going to take time anyways through the application process.
Understood. Just something to think about.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilman Fletcher. Anything further from council? We have a motion to approve. Moved by the Vice Mayor. We have seconded by Councilwoman Bailey. Any public comment? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, tab 10, motion to place car number 3551 on the council agenda. Funding allocation for Harris Field Gymnasium. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. In December of 2020, the YMCA moved out of the Harrisfield facility. Shortly after, the Parks Department began renting out the gymnasium to various groups. The gymnasium is in need of capital improvements, and with this funding, the improvements can begin immediately. The operational costs have already been included for the fiscal 2023 budget in the Parks and Recs Department. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the motion to allocate funding for the capital improvements at the Harrisfield Gymnasium in the amount of $131,500. The improvements will include capital, complete resurfacing and striping of the floors, painting walls, additional volleyball courts, portable bleachers, benches, LED lighting, and AC repairs. Park impact fees will be used for this item, which we will reimburse the park and impact fees upon receiving the proceeds of the sale of city property located at 191 Northwest 11th Street, which was approved by council, I want to say about 2 months ago.
Good, thank you. Questions or comments from council? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, is there any basketball being played there? No?
Not at this time, but we have a league that is interested in having a basketball league there as well, and we are talking to them. One of the challenges we have is that we don't have the bleachers for the spectators to watch the game. So this would help out with that.
Okay. The basketball, what do you call them? The ones that come folding down. I don't know when was the last time they were ever down. So do we have a way to put them down?
So we've already been looking into that. We were able to get most of them down, and that'll be one of the capital improvement repairs will be fully fixing that system.
So all the improvements will make itself available for basketball too?
Yes, that's correct.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. We're supposed to be resurfacing Roby George as well, the basketball courts. Is that happening before this?
Yes, CDBG monies for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilwoman?
So the discussion on the old YMCA facility a couple years ago really revolved around what our plans were, what our focus was, what our intentions were with this facility, and you know that it had so much capacity and potential to be so much more. It's prime real estate, and as much as I love the fact that it's serving our youth and our families in the interim, we haven't had a real hard conversation on it for quite a long time. I know our attention has been focused on the old City Hall site. And I certainly want to see that come to an end as well. But are we, as long as this council is still focused on finding an ultimate solution, hopefully in the very near future, then I'm okay with making the preliminary investments that we need to make to keep our families comfortable there. But what I am concerned about is giving an impression that this is the end all, and what we have right now is what it's going to end up being, and then later on taking it away, or creating a resource and then not being able to maintain it. My other concern is that the entities that are using the facility, it was a first come first serve. It wasn't necessarily put out for community-wide announcement that it's available. I have received questions about, well, I called and I asked if I could use the gym, and it was closed because of the YMCA, and then next thing I knew, it was already taken. And so it's been monopolized. It's very much an asset that is highly competitive and sought out for. So we need it. Let's go ahead and improve what we have to improve on it. But what's our ultimate focus for this building? And so I ask that we bring it up under conversation in the near future. I mean, I invite any other, if anyone else who wants to piggyback on it now to kind of express what their initial thoughts are, I would appreciate it. It'll help me formulate as well. Thank you.
Well, I would ask just out of curiosity, is there an intimation there that it might be handed over, demolished for private, commercial use, something totally not park related? Is that something that you'd like to have a conversation about?
Not park related? No, I foresee this being still essentially used for maximizing park, maximizing athleticism, and being a pinnacle for our community in that sphere. Mm-hmm. But in its current layout, I don't see it being maximized. I mean, we have how many, and a question for staff, how many entities are using it? And the peak hours are afternoons, right? After school and afternoons, except for the summertime?
Yeah, so we currently have the volleyball group in there. They're the main user. They're in their afternoon, evening hours. We've had interest from, as the manager mentioned already, several basketball groups. We've had interest from local schools as well to rent it for games, which we have been unable to do due to the bleachers and just the general condition of the facility. We want to be showcasing our facilities at their best. But there's definitely been a lot of interest from the community from different sectors, and our vision as far as operating this facility would be to allow for open rec hours as well throughout the day, to allow pickup games, that kind of thing.
I think that if it were to be rebuilt or added on, that it could maximize better uses. It could be more mixed use. You could have multi-levels, multi-floors for gym space. It's the only indoor gym we have. Is it the right place for the gym? My mind is going back to those original conversations that we had when we were considering renewing or not renewing the Y, and what everybody's comments were at that time and intentions were at that time. So I just kind of want to see, is this what we're going to do with this property? We're just going to leave it the way it is and rent out the gym?
And Councilwoman, it's just the gymnasium. The front portion of the YMCA has kind of been separated, right? Le Jardin has taken one portion of it. The other portion is vacant right now. And I believe I've mentioned to most of you, if not all of you, that we do have an entity that is interested in that other portion of the YMCA, not the gymnasium, not the swimming pool. And we're setting up a on-site visit for each of you individually so you can meet with this group and actually walk the facilities to hear what they have to say in terms of what they envision the site would look like and what they're proposing. And we think it's a very interesting proposition that's coming from their point. And at that point, we could come back to council and decide which way you all want to go, right? Whether you're interested in this group or you want us to go out again and do another solicitation to see if anybody's interested in the remaining portion of the YMCA, even the pool area, even the gymnasium. Because once again, anybody who comes in, we would want that community aspect of it as well, right? We're not just going to give somebody the gymnasium and then leave. We're going to want to ensure that the volleyball league can play there. We want to ensure that the basketball league can play there. So it's not all or nothing.
And I think in that regard, again, going back to the Parks Master Plan and what the findings are there, but in my mind, this very modest expenditure will make the gymnasium far more versatile and usable for many different groups and aspects of athletic events and even other, community type events.
You are correct, Mayor. Right now, there's only one group that can use it, and it's the volleyball folks. And they are clamoring to expand that program as well.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add one thing, that I would fight very hard to have that gym stay in the area just because of the lack of indoor gymnasiums that we have in the Southwest. We always have teams that are trying to do bigger and better types of tournaments. So I don't see what the full picture of that is, but definitely to keep that aspect of the gymnasium until something else is built. I would definitely love to see that. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Fletcher.
Yeah, I would just ask that we take a really good look at the line items that are listed here. As the capital improvements, I think we're going to spend $5,000 on landscape, but we're only going to spend $2,900 on air conditioning repair. I don't believe that's quite realistic.
They're just estimates right now. Councilman.
But you're asking for 131. Are you going to come back and ask for 151?
No, we're going to keep it to the 131. We're going to make do with what we have.
If you could just give us an update when you get those realistic
Yes,
numbers.
we'll be more than happy to.
Thank you, Councilman. Vice Mayor Guzman.
Mr. Manager, what is the agreement that we've got with the Little League? How long is that agreement? Is it a yearly agreement that gets...
So we currently do not have any youth sports agreements active in that facility. Right now, the volleyball league is just renting. The youth sports agreements are in, I believe, an annual basis renewable.
Vice Mayor, you mean just for the gymnasium, or you mean
No,
like Little Leagues?
Right. Little League Parks, the baseball Little League.
Yeah, we have annual agreements for the AYSO, baseball, soccer. We have annual agreements for those.
Do all of our annual agreements run at the same rate for our parks? Or soccer pays one fee, baseball pays a different fee?
It depends on the park.
Hey, Pedro.
There you go.
Hello. So it depends on the park. Essentially, the YSOs do not really pay fees to the city. What they pay is their light fee and their lining fee. So depending how many games they had, we calculate how much did we spend on paint, chalk, and then the light hours. Depending on the park, it's either $7 to $8 an hour, and then it gets calculated and they get billed. They also get billed for non-residents. So they give us a listing of their addresses of their registered children. We mark off how many don't live in the city, and they get charged $10 per child per season. So on average, it's roughly $3,000 to $4,000 per season is what they pay the city.
But that's for AYSO soccer.
AYSO, Homestead Youth Baseball, the Conley, and Homestead Little League.
Okay. And every year, either they decide to renew or they decide they want to, terminate their program. And it opens it up because they typically have rights to that field for the whole year.
Yeah, essentially these are long-established leagues that have been with the city since, I think, 70s or 80s, some of them.
Decades.
Yeah. So it's upon mutual agreement. Basically, if we don't see nothing wrong with the program is running smoothly, the numbers are growing, we're not getting complaints, it's a benefit to the community. We obviously just renew the agreement. We had one case where several years ago we were having issues with them, and we had to put out an RFP for one of them, and then they ended up changing their board, and they agreed to control their program.
So what type of issues would the city have with one of these entities that they just don't pay, or they're not following certain procedures? Are they supposed to upkeep the field, or is that our responsibility?
It's ours.
So how would we ever know if they're not running a very well-oiled machine?
It would be complaints from the parents. And I think the case that Pedro is referring to was an actual case several years ago. The parents were complaining about the league. It wasn't being run properly or inefficiently, and they reached out to Parks, at which point Parks spoke to the operator about the concerns, and I think they straightened out their course, and we haven't had any more issues with them at all. but the main source of information to us is from the parents of the leagues themselves. They're the ones who come and tell us if there's an issue going on or not.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because I think sometimes those Harris Field is the only thing on this side other than Blakey Park. But other than the sports complex, Harris Field is kind of where the main baseball or youth sports is going to happen across from JD Red. And if you look around other states, you know, there's big tournaments and there's big things happening that this city hasn't had in a long time. So I wanted to know what the terms of these agreements were, just in case at some point we could look at other, you know, entities that may want to have these types of tournaments and bring that type of talent to Homestead. That's why I was asking. So thanks for the answer.
And we can host tournaments. We were hosting tournaments prior to COVID. I don't think they've picked up yet since, but the agreement does give the city the ultimate right to schedule other events on those fields. Basically, at the beginning of the season, we get what they're going to use, and then that's how we rent it out. Let's say Jerry wanted to come rent out a field for practice or whatnot, we'd know.
So right now, there are no complaints for any of the youth leagues in Homestead at the moment?
We had one small complaint, I believe, two parents for Harris Field, for the Little League, and staff went out there, looked into it, and they really didn't find what they were complaining about.
Okay, thank you.
The two quick observations on that, Pedro, is while these youth leagues that have annual agreements with us have priority, they are not exclusive agreements. There are openings to bring tournaments and provide small openings for other groups and leagues to utilize whatever type of field it may be, number one. So Little League doesn't necessarily exclude having a tournament. And number two, I think that's the whole concept behind the new and improved Homestead Sports Complex, or whatever name it will go under in the future, is that it will, A, provide additional capacity for local youth leagues, and certainly far more capacity to draw soccer and baseball tournaments, and provide some outdoor basketball play as well.
Absolutely, Mayor. And don't forget pickleball. We're going to have pickleball as well.
Yes. Pickleball. Okay. You know, I just can't help but think of shuffleboard out there in the front of the old Homestead. You used to call it Senior Center. I swear we're going to call that the McCaffrey Memorial Pickleball Courts. That was her thing.
You have my vote for that.
Okay. Very good.
So, Mayor, back to what we were just saying, if somebody were to come in with some sort of request to utilize fields, they typically get pointed in the direction of, not necessarily Pedro, they get pointed in the direction of whoever is the manager of that particular league or the president of that league. And the minute you approach that person, they say, oh no, you can't touch this field. This field is our field and there is no additional time for you guys to have your games. So I personally get calls from people saying, hey, you know, I spoke to so-and-so, they don't give me any time. It's not available. And sometimes I don't even call Pedro because I'm taking them for face value. That's why I'm asking the questions now, so I can better understand how we are positioned with these types of agreements that we have in place.
Yeah, a lot of people sometimes take it upon themselves to go to the leagues directly, and of course the leagues are going to say, oh, no, you're not going to get on my field. But when they come to us, we don't tell the league exactly like, you know, hey, so-and-so wants to rent your field. No, we tell them, hey, we're looking to host a tournament. If we know for sure it's going to be a tournament, let's say 2 months from now, I tell them, this weekend you can't schedule any games because we're going to host a big tournament. Now, if it's just a one-day rental, you wanted to practice, I double-check with the league because there is obviously rainouts, so the schedule it's very fluid. We got to check with them. Hey, do you have a game scheduled Thursday night? No? Okay, thank you. And then we rent it out, and we give the person a permit.
Yeah, the important thing here, Vice Mayor, is if you get a complaint like that, let us know, and we'll reach out to them ourselves directly to make sure there's no confusing information.
Yeah.
If there's nothing further, do we have a motion to approve? Moved by Councilman Roth, Second by Councilwoman Bailey. Any public comment? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next item, tab 11, motion to place car number 3525 on the council agenda. Lease agreement for police motorcycles for fiscal year 2023. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. The police department would like to renew the motorcycle lease with Alligator Alley, Harley-Davidson Leasing, Inc. Our current lease will end on October 30th, 2022. The new motorcycle lease cost will increase by $196.37 per month per motorcycle, and the new monthly lease rate on each motorcycle will be $757.12, which includes all new emergency equipment and graphics installed. The total yearly lease for the 4 bikes will be $36,341.76, with a $1,044 acquisition and registration fee. For the 36-month lease term, inclusive of fees, the total will be $110,069.28. Alligator Alley Harley-Davidson has 2 contracts in place, one with the City of Miami Beach and the other with the City of Fort Lauderdale, but could not honor the piggyback pricing due to price increase in October 2021. Staff reached out to 2 other vendors that provided the same service. Peterson Harley-Davidson was one of them. The yearly lease for the 4 motorcycles was $49,802.40, with a $1,120 acquisition and registration fee. The other was Daytona Harley-Davidson, which was not interested in coding due to the distance from Homestead. So staff recommends the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to enter an agreement with Alligator Alley Harley-Davidson Leasing, Inc. for the lease of 4 motorcycles for the Homestead Police Department Traffic Unit for a grand total of $110,069.28 over 3 years. This authorization will also allow the manager to accept the price increase of up to 10% at renewal if required by Alligator Alley, Harley-Davidson, and Harley-Davidson Leasing. I'm having trouble saying alligator today.
Thank you. Council? We have a motion by Councilman Ross, second by Councilman Fletcher. Quick question. Now, if the police department chime in. Are these vehicles used on a daily basis by patrol officers?
They're not used on a daily basis. Obviously, when weather permits, we don't allow the motorcycles to be driven in inclement weather, but they are used often. They're used for details such as funeral escorts or assisting other agencies with different details as well, but it's not on a daily basis.
So it's almost specialized ceremonial type equipment.
No, not ceremonial. I wouldn't say that. They do enforcement on it. They do traffic enforcement. But again, they can't do that on days that it's inclement weather.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to think, when have I last seen a Homestead Police Department motorcycle other than a parade or a funeral detail or some sort of a special event? I don't, doesn't seem, okay, who's old enough to know who Ticket Taylor was? we don't really have that anymore. So, I'm questioning the expense. Is it a necessary piece of equipment? That's my question.
Good evening, Sergeant Augusta. I'm the Traffic Homicide Motor Sergeant for the department. Our motors are used relatively about 2 to 3 times a week. Our motor officers are out there doing traffic enforcement. We recently just finished the Clicker ticket wave. We're also doing additional seatbelt enforcement due to a grant that we have. Plus, we also do DUI enforcement. So the motorcycles are used frequently. They are also a vehicle that assists on uniform patrol when my guys are on the bikes, because they actually allow them to get to situations quicker than an officer in a regular car. Due to our training and everything that we go through, we can get through traffic and get to scenes a lot quicker when we are there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, anything further from council? Any public comment? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next item is motion to place car number 3546 on the council agenda. Traffic Control Jurisdiction Agreement with Malibu Bay Community Association, Inc. Mr.
Mayor,
Manager?
if I may, both items 13 and 14, can they be read together? They are essentially like a housekeeping item for our community in District 5.
Of course.
12 and 13. Okay. All right. 12 and 13. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a traffic control jurisdictional agreement which allows the Homestead police officers to enforce applicable traffic statutes on private roadways. Staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a traffic control jurisdictional agreement between the city of Homestead and Malibu Bay Community Association, Inc. The next car item, staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a traffic control jurisdictional agreement between the city of Homestead and its states at Mendocino at Malibu Bay Neighborhood Association, Inc.
Thank you. Council?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Fletcher.
Yeah, so we do have other traffic control agreements with other closed communities. My question really regards to Exhibit B on compensation for this is going to be the last page of each agenda item here for patrol officers on like an off-duty rate. It says the city will be the owner at $45 per hour of that cost. Are we billing that to the FOP, or is the city actually being billed for that?
The $45 for off-duty.
Says the city will bill the owner $45 for each officer required to perform the requested traffic detail. Is that an FOP cost, or is that a City of Homestead reimbursable?
I believe that's a separate cost. I don't think that's part of the off-duty rate, the officer that's working the off-duty itself. So that part of the that item, I don't believe belongs as part of the off-duty agreement.
My only concern is that I think our cost of doing business is higher than $45 an hour if you're paying somebody to sit out there and perform this on an on-duty basis if the city requests it. So I would just ask that we check those numbers, is all.
Councilman, if you want to charge more, I'll be more than happy to charge more.
Okay. I'm in. I don't know about the others.
My understanding is that the off-duty police that are going to be in the community, that's separate. That's a separate agreement with regards to FOP. This $45 an hour would be to actually do an enforcement if they were to be called. That's. I didn't pick the number, so I'm sure that's
cost neutral.
A number out of the department, right?
Correct. And with what you're saying there is correct. If there's a separate detail that is being conducted aside from the officers that may have that regular off-duty in that community. For example, there are some of the communities that don't have an off-duty program. We may end up having officers out there that may either they'll get hired as part of an off-duty program, or we may be directed out there, and that may be what that fee is indicating.
Right. And these agreements are based on the fact that those are private properties, and so in order for the HPD to enforce the law, an agreement has to be in place. So there should be another one with regards to Villas at Carmel. And I don't see that in this packet. So
This was the only two we received in the system.
Okay, but if you could follow up maybe for next week's meeting, we can get that approved, if that's still in.
Yes, I'll check on that tomorrow.
Thank you very much. So I'll make the motion to approve both items.
Okay. And to your question, Councilman, we'll clarify the $45 an hour, and we'll get that information to council prior to the next meeting.
All right, so we have a motion on tab 12. And a second by Councilman Roth on tab 12. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Tab 13. Moved by the councilwoman, seconded by the councilman. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, coming into the home stretch. Tab 14, motion to place car number 3497 on the council agenda. Approval of the rental extension of one side loader from Big Truck Rental.
Thank you, Mayor. In early March of 2022, side loader 21041 was involved in an accident significantly hampering the solid waste operations. In order to alleviate the situation, a side loader was rented from Big Truck Rentals, LLC for the duration of the repairs. Due to a national back order on parts, the damaged side loader is still not repaired, and solid waste needs to extend the existing rental with Big Truck Rentals through January 31st, 2023. Big Truck Rentals has notified the city that it will receive a discount for the long-term rental, which may be returned at any time without a penalty. The new monthly fee will be $9,300 a month versus $9,500 a month. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to approve the rental extension agreement for the one-side loader from Big Truck Rentals LLC through January 31st, 2023 for an estimated cost of $120,000. One thing to keep in mind here, Mayor and Council, the cost of this is being covered by Travelers Insurance, which is the insurance company that covers the business that had the accident with the city. There was no fault at the city level at this point.
Thank you. Council? Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilman Roth.
One quick recycling-related question, please. How much does it cost to get an extra recycling can, and how long would it be for a resident to receive one?
I believe it's a nominal cost. Okay, $65 for the can. What they do is they call the solid waste department. They tell them they want an additional can. Is that one charge?
Yeah, the automated thing right now says that there's a very long wait, so I'm wondering.
Well,
So what is our estimated wait? How far behind are we?
Let me double check with the staff, and I will get you an answer. I don't want to say supply chain issues, but it could be a supply chain. I know at one point we could not get super cans. Okay. So let me get you that answer, and I'll go ahead and forward that to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, when was the last time we raised our solid fee rates?
14 years ago.
I got word that Miami-Dade County is hosting a public hearing on July 22nd to discuss and listen to the public about raising their rates. Can we do the same? Like, do we need to do a public hearing, or can we just decide to raise the rates ourselves?
Would that be in conjunction with the budget process?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's part of the budget process. Right now we're doing an analysis. Remember, we changed our pickups, for example, from recycling from every week to every other week. Same thing with bulky pickup. So as we go through the budgeting process, we're going to do an analysis and see if we're catching up. But Vice Mayor, you are correct. I actually saw the notice, and basically the notice says, by the way, if we don't raise our rates, we're going to pick up your garbage once a week instead of twice a week. So I guess the issue is getting serious at Miami-Dade County. And once again, a lot of this is being driven by fuel costs and cost of parts. Everything is going through the roof. I don't have to tell you all. It's out there every day in the news. So that's something we're definitely looking at. And when we go through the budget process, we will bring that to you all. And depending on what the situation is, staff will provide guidance to council, and council can give us direction at that point.
Yeah, because I think all of our other efforts are not getting us the results that we'd like to see, nor in the time that we'd like to see them. So the only other alternative is to raise the rates so that we can have additional funds to get additional people, additional equipment, additional everything that we need to run a good, solid department. So that budget season, when is that in August, October? When does that happen?
We are already starting with the departments. It will be around September that we'll be coming to council, but we'll be talking to you way before that. In addition to the budget process, we are having an analysis done of our solid waste department in terms of the routes, talking about a transfer station. We're looking at that. We're even looking into our own tipping floor here at the city, so which would help us save time driving to the dump as opposed to being out on the street picking up the garbage and trash for our individuals. So once we get that analysis back, that'll be part of our discussion with you all on what the best practice is and which way we should go with the solid waste department.
So the analysis that you're talking about with solid waste, that's coming next month?
No, I think the analysis is out about a month or so. Staff would look at it, sit down with the vendor, and then once we come to agreement with everything we're seeing, then we bring that information to council to let you know.
And just to clarify, if we were going to propose an increase in the solid waste fees, it would be a similar hand-in-hand process as we had with an increase in water and sewer rates in this past budget year, that those would be separate agenda public hearing items that would have to be passed just prior to the implementation of the final budget. So that would be the process.
Okay, so that's at the end of September.
No, August.
August, September.
The final is before August. Or
Yeah.
so
The final
October
budget
1.
gets approved in September, right? There's 2 hearings, but we'll have that information way before then.
Is it safe to say that the rates will probably go up?
Let me look at the data first.
Data driven, just like ShotSpotter, data driven. Okay. So, did we have okay, so moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilman Fletcher to continue renting a garbage truck. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And finally, motion to place car number 3548 on the council agenda, IMG Rabel Advisory, Inc. agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. The city engaged IMG Rebel Advisory, Inc. on May 16, 2022 to perform consulting services related to the city's business and financial dealings with third parties related to the development and redevelopment of city assets, specifically the redevelopment of the old City Hall site. Staff expects to exceed the city manager's purchasing authority of $25,000 before finishing negotiations on this deal and would like to have the option to engage Rebel to advise on other pending and future projects. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with IMG Rebel Advisory, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $125,000. This is a 1-year agreement with the option to extend for 3 additional 1-year periods upon the same terms and conditions and mutual written consent of both parties. This agreement falls under City Code Section 24111-2, exempt from competitive bidding.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Councilwoman Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is another one that's going to be data-driven. Hopefully they prove themselves to us, right? But is there a max amount of projects that we can run before them? Like, how does that work?
It's on an hourly rate. And to your point, this does not guarantee them $125,000. You know, they're not on retainer. If we use them, we pay them. If we don't use them, we don't pay them. Okay. If it's not working out, we don't extend the agreement. We end it tomorrow. So there's no guarantee that they're going to have these monies.
Okay, thank you.
Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilwoman Bailey. Anything further? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Good night.